Welcome to all the early heads in chat. Welcome. It is Monday, 7th of October. And today I will make it feel like no other day because it is Monday, the 7th of October. Enjoy the music and we will be starting in a few. Thank you, Terrible Clerk, for the 7 months, baby. Thank you very much.
The road October.
Let's go, Habibis. Let's go, Habibis. We will be starting in a few. Let me just liquidate myself. And by that, I do not mean suicide. I mean water. Hello, all my dear friends, all my dear chatters, all my dear viewers, all my dear followers, all my dear subscribers, all my dear child soldiers, all my dear followers of the eternal way of gooning. Welcome back. It is your boy Yugopnik. I am in the proper dad outfit, and today is October 7th. Monday, a historical day, a day that most of us will never forget. But it was a start of a year that none of us, with absolute certainty, will ever forget. Hello, chatters. I cannot believe it's been a year. It's been a horrible year when it comes to the struggle of the Palestinian people, and that is what we are going to be talking about today. I hope that at least the majority of you were capable or able to find nearby protests, walks, calls for ceasefire protests, etc., in your local cul-de-sac, city, village, township, or whatever you want to call it. And I hope you attended yesterday or today, because there have been plenty. Jesus, how has it been a year already? I know. Today's stream will pretty much 70% revolve around that. But before we begin, the song we played in the intro was The Red Banner is Raised, Palestinian communist song if you want to listen to it. Now, I just saw this, Normal Finkelstein October 7th Revisited, that I believe I've added to the list. As you can see in the title of today's stream, we will pretty much be covering the year in retrospective. Plot twist. The year is pretty much mass murder, genocide. Then there's a little bit of an interlude. And then it's mass murder, genocide.
Wonderful. A new child.
Thank you,
soldier,
Sofa Cushion.
subscriber.
Good morning, Hugo. I hope you're doing well on this terrible day. Can find a small shed of hope in the shitstorm. I absolutely can. And that is my family, my loved ones, and you, my beautiful, beautiful chat. It is good to see all the OGs up in here, from Pandas to Gay Lenin to Stella to Figgy to Comrade Internet to Gabriel Hellborn, the oldest man in chat to ever live on Twitch, to Red Phil and the good Lenin. We have many of the Lenins today. Those of you who are new in chat, yes, we have a gay Lenin, we have a good Lenin, we have a bad Lenin, we have a grandma Lenin, we have a gremlin Lenin, we have a troll Lenin, we have all the different varieties of religions of Lenin, okay? There is many a Lenin up in this motherfucker, okay? Lenin. You know what they call him in Russia? Lenin. There are many different versions of him in Russia. Gay Lenin, bad Lenin, goblin Lenin, okay? Anyways, jokes aside, my camera setup is fucking weird today. I don't know why. Today I just went to the gym. I did a little bit of shopping. I bought some clothes and I ate. I ate like a fucking pig. I didn't have anything for breakfast, which made the distance between my previous two which made the difference between when I ate yesterday and today, like 15, 16 hours. So I was extremely hungry. So I believe I overdid it. So that's why I'm going to be slow probably in the first hour, because my body is pretty much using all of the blood to digest the food and not a lot of the blood to use my brain. Okay? How are you guys doing on this fine day? Do you remember where you were last October 7th? Do you remember how you saw the news? How did you react? Was it woo? Was it no? Was it silence? Actually, do not tell me. I don't want to know. Neither does the Twitch TOS. I want to encourage everybody today to hide their power levels as much as they potentially can. Those of you who do not understand what that means, I will not explain what it means. But please, when it comes to the events of October 7th, exactly 365 days ago, power levels should be kept at a low, because this platform feeds me. So I give it a little bit of respect by respecting its terms of service. But what feeds me even more? You chatters, and I don't want you to get in trouble. So again, keep those beautiful, beautiful power levels down low. Thank you very much, Ka. Thank you very much, Ka. Now, let us start today's stream by doing a quite literal retrospective of everything that has been happening in the past year. 1 year of Israel's war on Gaza. What you need to know. Al Jazeera English, as always, has delivered. Afterwards, because I'm more of a media specialist, we have an interesting short documentary on, again, a retrospective on the entire previous year from the lens of how Western media has reported on this. As you know, this massive ethnic cleansing and mass murder campaign would not have been possible without the wholesale creation of everything, of the wholesale pitch that everything the IDF has been doing in Gaza as a sort of step towards enlightened peace, etc., which again would not have been possible without the direct collaboration of particularly Western and privately owned media companies. So we have Al Jazeera, ironically, a privately owned but Thankfully, not Western company. Okay, I mean, part state, part private, but you get my fucking point. Where we're going to cover how the West is reported on this from the get-go. Then we might get into a little bit of the history, and then we'll move to some chud watching and maybe talk about how Zionists influence Hollywood, pop culture, etc., etc. A video that's been staying in my playlist for quite a while. So yes, welcome, sit down, be serious, and try to spend this day with as less stress as you can, which will be very impossible because the Zionists will make you think about it 24/7. Thank you very much, Gabriel, for 100 bits. Man, I wish I had a Fed agent just for me. Remember the good old days when you had you had to actually bore an actual human being to be surveilled? Yeah, goddamn algorithms made being a anti-establishment shill kind of boring, you know. One weird thing happened though. Actually, I'm not even going to mention it. There's a weird thing that happened to me after I covered the Iranian response to Tel Aviv. A pretty strange thing, but I don't want to talk about it because then, yeah, well, this sounds super weird, but I'm genuinely not going to talk about it. Anyways, ignore that. 1 year of Israel's war on Gaza, what you need to know. Let's go.
Loss and suffering. Let's talk about 1 year of war in Gaza. For Palestinians, it's been 12 months of unprecedented loss and suffering.
Living here in Gaza feels like being trapped in a never-ending cycle of trauma.
لقيت حالي كل وادم ما انا عارفه اتنفس حتى امها ماتت مين بده يرجعها
Everything you hear or see about Gaza is just the tip of the iceberg.
I remember the date Egypt got word it was going to happen, and then Easy didn't do anything. Yeah, how am I supposed to ignore you hinting at the fact that the feds are onto you? No, I mean, it's not that serious, but I have my suspicions of particular activity.
No photo or video can convey the smell of death, the sound of 24/7 drones. The uncertainty of whether you or your family will make it through another day hangs over every moment of each day.
The number of journalists killed, the number of medical workers killed, the number of schools destroyed, the percentage of amputated children. This is the worst war in modern history.
A lot has happened since October 7th, 2023. So I'm going to run you through some of the main updates on the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, what's going on with the Israeli captives, what's going on with Hamas, and where things are at with the ceasefire.
The eternal documentary trope that has started, I believe, in 2014 or 15, where you have to have a shot of either the host or anybody who's being interviewed bringing forward a chair and then sitting on it, okay? We must have at least 15 seconds of somebody taking out a chair and sitting on it. No matter how, without the chair, we are not serious documentarians, okay? We are not serious documentarians. Thank you, Benji Limon, for the 9-month streak, baby. You're officially pregnant by my Twitch baby, okay? Either go take care of that sorry fucker or take care of it by yourself, because I ain't paying no fucking alimony for something that is purple, okay? The fucking kid's gonna turn out purple because it was impregnated through a Twitch subscription button. I ain't taking care of that, okay? So good luck to you, Benji, and thank you very much for being yet another of my many, many sugar mamas, okay?
Let's start with the human cost in Gaza. Remember, we're talking about a tiny strip of land densely packed with more than 2 million people who can't leave, where Israel has dropped thousands of bombs. More than 40,000 people have been killed, according to Gaza's health ministry.
The estimates are much higher, potentially reaching up to 186 to 187,000.
Recently published this list, naming more than 30,000 of the dead. It's 649 pages long. The first 13 pages are all babies under 1. It's not until page 215 that you see the name of an adult.
Given to you with no comment issued.
This year has been a relentless cycle of loss of loved ones, loss of homes, and loss of livelihoods.
أرجو أن تستفيقوا وأن توقفوا هذه الإبادة المتلفزة.
Right now, the UN's highest court is deciding whether Israel's actions in Gaza amount to genocide, an accusation Israel rejects. Gaza has been devastated by Israel's bombing. By May 2024, more than half of all of Gaza's buildings had been damaged or destroyed, according to the UN. It's not just thousands of residential buildings, but also roads, farmland, mosques, churches, hospitals, universities, and schools.
The landscape is totally decimated and destroyed.
Nearly everyone in Gaza, 90% of the population, has been forced to leave their home. Many people have had to pack up and move over and over again, and are living in bombed-out buildings, tents, and out in the streets.
نزحت من غزة لخان يونس، من خان يونس لحمد، من حمد للجمهور 20 مرة. بهدلنا وفقدنا كتير.
المرة السابعة ما ضلش خلص حلونا بكفي.
أنا بدي أعرف واحد يطلع إعلام يقول لي وين الناس تروح، عن جد وين الناس تروح.
The Israeli military has issued dozens of evacuation orders, telling civilians to go to so-called safe zones, while it says it goes after...
Remember the thousands upon thousands of IOF and Israel defenders in the beginning of the Gaza operation, using both the leaflets that the IDF has been using pretty much for the last fucking 30 years as a perfect excuse to call itself an ethical army, only to proceed and bomb different targets than what the leaflets show, etc., as if also if I tell you that I'm gonna hit your house and then I hit your house, that makes me hitting your house a bit less fucked up. Whatever, a child's conversation, something that is way above, way below my pay grade, and way below something that you chatters would be interested in talking about, because you probably had a conversation like 700 times by now. But yeah, remember when they actually believed that this is going to be a pincer operation where they will specifically target militants, which they will remove from Gaza, both through mass arrests or through actual liquidation, and the Palestinian people will not be harmed, ignoring what the Israeli state has repeatedly, openly stated is as a conflict, quote unquote conflict, as an operation against the wider Palestinian populace. Not only have they been proven wrong, but this is kind of this entire conflict has this entire scenario as it is unfolding in front of our eyes has to an extent, or at least should have shown the majority of young people that don't remember the good old Cold War days, the way some of us also don't. I'm not that fucking old. It should have taught them that absolutely everything they learned about so-called enlightened principles of Western democracies and ideas that only our quote-unquote enemies do bad things, but even if our allies do them, we will be there to wiggle our finger and stop them. This sort of myth at this point is supposed to be completely shattered for everybody who has a brain. And if you're one of those that still believes in it, you need genuine, true psychiatric help. You need help because you do not, you cannot connect very basic events to very basic worldviews. You have the mental capacity of a child, and you need to be taken care of. Like,
Wonderful.
you
A
genuinely
new
need
child
to be
soldier.
taken care of.
Subscriber.
Thank you, Equal Waves, the fucking OG of OGs, the first fucking oiler of my chat, and one of my first lovely, lovely mods. Thank you, Equal Waves, for the 9 months. You fucking legend, okay? I can't even make the Twitch baby joke with you because you've given me like 250 or 300 something like subs. So with you we have a kindergarten, okay? A kindergarten of disgusting purple Twitch kids. And thank you 420 Blush for the 100 bits as well. Thank you very kindly.
Hamas fighters. But even those zones...
Sorry guys that I'm a bit slow. I really overate earlier, and I can feel my my brain capacity is like at fucking 50%. But my previous pitch is that after seeing the United States support Israel in its total embargo, genocide, and ethnic cleansing campaign in Gaza, after you've seen Western media completely lie about what is happening on the ground, after having
Wonderful.
seen
A new child soldier. Subscriber.
100% cliche definition of what it looks like for one apartheid insane colonial regime to be systematically annihilating a whole population. After seeing all of that, if you still believe that there is such a thing as ethics in a neoliberal capitalist Western world order, to repeat myself, you need to go check yourself in a clinic, okay? You need to go back to primary school. I don't know what you need to do, but you are not okay. You cannot take care of yourself, okay? You're not normal, okay? For the lack of a fucking different word, okay? Please, you need help. You need help. I'm not even making fun of you. You need help. If I show you the color blue, you will probably say that it's fucking green, okay? Okay? Thank you very much, Ping Vinley, for the 6 months and the 4-month streak. You fucking legend. Thank you very kindly. And the hype train has begun. Hype train has indeed begun. And I'm going to give you the same pitch I did back in the day. The bigger the hype train is, the thicker it becomes as it slithers into the sky only to detonate itself on Netanyahu's house, of course, only in Minecraft. So the bigger of an explosion you want on Netanyahu's house, the bigger the hype train will become.
Are coming under fire. Humanitarian agencies say nowhere in Gaza is safe.
Daylight gives you a sense of the power that came from the air. Israel says it targeted...
Anyone ever feel that the greatest trick the devil ever pulled is convincing us he lost?
various Hamas field commanders. But what that means is that...
Thank you, Gabriel, the oldest man to ever be on Twitch, for the gift sub. Thank you very much, my friend.
Israel targeted a camp for the internally displaced. Their tarpaulin tents no protection against Israel's military might. Israel deemed this a safe zone.
That was in Al-Mawasi in September. At least 19 people.
Not to beat a fucking dead Israeli horse over the head, even though I would... Okay, I'm not gonna do the joke. I keep forgetting I'm on Twitch, Jesus fucking Christ. How do I put this in a more polite way? No, there is no way that today is a very hard day for me because 90% of the things I want to say are a bannable offense. So I just gotta,
were killed.
I gotta be quiet and let the fucking documentary speak instead of me. Okay, thank you.
Times and times again, we have seen Israel justifying massacres in order to pursue the alleged killing of a militant. But by this token, Israel is given license to kill everyone in Gaza by simply claiming that it was to kill a Hamas combatant. This is indecent. I mean, it's beyond unlawful.
So what's happening with...
But it works. Thank you, Jeb. Thank you, Jeb. Thank you, Jeb. For the burgers. Thank you, Jeb, for the bits. But it works. As we see, it works.
Aid delivery. Remember, at the start of the war, Israel imposed a complete siege on Gaza.
אין חשמל, אין מזון, אין מים, אין דלק. הכל סגור. אנחנו נלחמים בחיות אדם ואנחנו נוהגים בהתאם.
They tell you move to a territory. You move to that territory and then they still kill you. Tell you to move to another territory, then they still kill you. Their entire leadership openly comes out on camera and says, fuck all of these people. This is a war against the people, not a particular group. Even the children are terrorists. Then you look at the military itself, quite literally torture, mass murder, SA, R-word, P-word, absolutely everybody around Gaza and in their domestic prison camps. Then that gets completely ignored by Western media, and every single potential political candidate in the United States says, we might disagree on particular things, but we believe that Israel should keep doing the good thing. What good thing, Madam or Mr. Future President? Well, the thing where they defend their right to do the thing. Okay? And you look at absolutely all of that, and you're like, no, we live on a civilized fucking planet with actual rules where something can actually be stopped on the basis of it just being immoral. Okay? You have the entirety of the United Nations, which has a Security Council whose whole fucking job is to stop things like this from happening, at least on paper. At least on paper, right? Then, even in that very same Security Council, twice, the United States of America, Israel's greatest ally, basically the same country, even they abstain when they talk about a ceasefire, temporary or permanent. And it still doesn't happen. Israel simply continues. Okay?
Wonderful.
You see all of that, and somehow you still wake up on the next morning, you're like, the current status quo, the current global order, I love it. Super base, super makes sense, super fucking rational. Let's fucking go.
Business.
What fucking drugs are you on? I am sorry for harping on it so much, but I am genuinely 1000% baffled at how anybody, literally anybody that is not directly, materially involved in the Israeli project, them I understand, they're fucking evil and they want money and prestige and political power, but how can anybody else not see through this? It is like it's one thing when we say, people don't have access to all the information and then they can't, develop a more eloquent or more quote unquote correct perspective on a particular event or on this or on that. I get that. But here, how many do I need to count? Fucking headless babies, UN Security Council, starvation, destruction of infrastructure, destruction of hospitals. Now an invasion of a whole third party, of a whole fucking other country. How many of those do you have to miss? How many of, every fucking day, how many of all of the things that they say and they do you have to miss to still be like, no, they're the good guys. They're the good guys. And you're fucking anti-Semitic or some other stupid shit. No excuses left. At 365 days. We are done taking excuses for anybody on the basis of ignorance or lack of privilege or lack of access to information. No, fuck all of that. Done. Absolutely done. Fuck. Thank you, Robin, very much. And thank you, Elmas Jules, you fucking legend, for 5 community. And thank you, Ramka. Hello, Tavarishi. Very nice to see you too. Done.
Israel has been accused of using starvation as a weapon of war, including by the UN's Special Rapporteur on the Right to Food. In a report to the UN General Assembly, he said Israel made its intentions to starve everyone in Gaza explicit. Then, Israel used starvation to induce forced...
Thank you, Gabriel. These idiots need to walk through Gaza to smell the carnage. And no, even then, they'll be like, oh, what...
transfer, harm, and death against people in the north, pushing people into the south, only to starve, bombard, and kill people in newly created refugee camps in the south.
Around 500,000 people are facing catastrophic levels of food insecurity. In other words, they're facing famine. In August, an average of just 69 aid trucks entered Gaza per day, which is a record low. Aid groups say Israel is blocking 83% of the required food aid from reaching Gaza.
On top of all of that, disease is spreading because there's not enough clean water.
The lack of clean water has led to 1.7 million cases of infection diseases that can trigger massive and deadly epidemics, making water scarcity and contamination a silent bomb which has far less visibility than those that
Fuck, I'm still sick. Sorry, chat.
destroy buildings, but are no less lethal bomb.
The risk of disease is coupled with a desperate lack of medical care. Doctors Without Borders says Gaza's healthcare system is being methodically dismantled through Israeli attacks, the blocking of aid, and the lack of protection for medical staff. Before the war, Gaza had 36 hospitals. Now, just 17 are partially functioning, according to the UN.
It does feel like people are waiting for death. Death seems to be the only certainty in this situation, in all of this uncertainty. And that's
They've had death as a certainty for the last 70 years. Of course, now even more intensified. Palestinians in Gaza live as death is the option every single day. You know? A lot of us wake up every morning, you know, thank the Lord or whatever we believe in, or just statistics, doesn't matter, you know, for the privilege of being alive for one more day. You know, you didn't wake up with a tumor, you didn't die in your sleep, your loved ones are okay, etc., but we do it to an extent, at least those more privileged, like myself, of course, at the end of the day, you know, just to practice mindfulness, just to practice thankfulness, which is all very nice and dandy, but to an extent, let's be honest, they fucking LARP. To a Palestinian, from a 1-year-old to a fucking 90-year-old in the last 70 years, that has been an everyday occurrence. And when you wake up and you thank God that you are alive this day, it is a very serious fucking practice, because the chances of you having died are astronomical compared to almost every other place on planet Earth.
really horrific reality for people to have on the ground here.
Now, for Israelis, one of the biggest concerns...
I'm like, oh, thank God I didn't I didn't scratch my car today, okay? My statistical chance of me scratching my car today is the same as a Palestinian dying for the last 70 years. And in the last year, me, not enjoying my second cup of coffee is statistically equal to a Palestinian potentially dying that day.
Since Hamas's attack in October last year, when more than 1,000 people were killed, has been the fate of the captives. 251 Israelis and foreigners were taken by Hamas and other groups into Gaza. 117 have got out alive through a prisoner swap, Israeli army operations, or because Hamas released them. The bodies of 37 captives have been recovered and returned to Israel. Some of them were killed by Israeli forces, according to various reports. In August, Israeli soldiers located the bodies of 6 captives in a Hamas tunnel.
Rest in peace to every innocent soul lost in all of this, in these 70 years. But we are fucking Marxists here, okay? It's a cliche, but October 7th didn't begin on October 7th, okay? The reason So many died. It doesn't matter who, doesn't matter what belief system, what ethnicity, etc., is because a colonial apartheid regime was allowed to continue for what is now almost a century. So if you are a both-sider or whatever, which again, I think you kind of fucked in the head for that. But even if you are, and you want, oh my God, world peace, etc., the only path towards that is for an unhinged racist colonial system to be removed from play. Okay?
Israel accused Hamas of killing them. Hamas said it held Israel responsible because it had refused to sign a ceasefire deal. 97 captives remain unaccounted for.
אני חושב עליהם כל הזמן, על המשפחות שלהם, על הסבל שלהם, ולכן הלכנו כברת דרך ארוכה כדי להחזיר אותם. אבל תוך כדי הפעולה הזאת, אנחנו שמרנו על מטרות המלחמה, בראשן חיסול החמאס.
For months, there have been protests in Israel, led by some of the captives' families, calling on Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to agree to a ceasefire that would save their loved ones. The incident in August, when 6 captives were found dead, triggered the biggest protest so far.
לא מעניין אותו כלום, מעניין אותו נתניהו, ומעניין אותו להישאר בשלטון.
The life of more than 100 Israelis, men, women, young girls, their life are not the first priority of the Israeli government. This is something that makes you think, where are they taking us? Where are they taking the Israeli people, Jews and Arabs?
Despite the big street protests, Netanyahu looks pretty secure politically. A poll in May showed that 39% of Israelis thought the government's military response against Hamas in Gaza had been about right, and 34% thought it had not gone far enough. Okay, so what about Hamas? Israel has always said the aim of its war is to eliminate the group. 12 months on, that hasn't happened. Israel has said that it's killed a senior Hamas commander, Mohammed Deif, in July, although Hamas says he's still alive. And then Hamas's political leader, Ismail Haniyeh, was assassinated in Iran. Most people think Israel was behind it.
The guy who did the fucking negotiations, the guy who did...
Hamas's military leader, Yahya Sinwar, has replaced Haniyeh. Sinwar is thought to be in Gaza. Now, when it comes to Hamas's fighting capability, we don't have exact numbers on things like ammunition or the number of fighters they've lost.
And that's exactly what Israel will continue to feed off of, okay? Hamas is an idea. Yes, it is a political structure. Yes, it is a military structure. But because it is so fluid in its nature, at least the military structure as such, which was necessitated by the situation they found themselves in, okay? I'm not blaming it on how they structured it, but the Israelis and Western powers in general have used that fact that it is so fluid to basically paint the entire Palestinian population as a potential military target or a potential quote-unquote terrorist, which they've been milking now for over 365 days.
Before the war, Israeli officials...
They've been milking it before, but now they're milking it, okay? Now they're making fucking Swiss cheese out of it.
Estimated that Hamas had around 30,000 fighters. Recently, the Israeli army said it had killed 17,000 fighters, but gave no details about how it arrived at that number. Hamas itself hasn't released any figures, but says it's still got the capacity to keep up the fight.
حجم الإصابات الذي يقع في المقاومة هو أقل بكثير مما هو متوقع في معركة بهذا الحجم وبهذا المستوى وبهذا الاتساع، وقدرة المقاومة على الاستمرار هي قدرة عالية.
We don't really know the details of what condition Hamas is in.
Yes, both because the IDF is completely incapable, and I love pissing on their fucking LARPy approach to war as much as everybody else. I love mentioning that, without U.S. financial
Wonderful. A new
support,
child
the whole
soldier,
fucking country would
subscriber.
destabilize and fall apart in a matter of weeks. All correct assumptions to hold, but we need to remember that wasn't the goal from the get-go. The goal was to make Gaza completely inhospitable to life. Okay? Kill as many, displace as many, and in the long term, for the future, make it as inhospitable as possible, because they do not want it to exist as a concept. Yes? So again, to repeat myself, the successes of Hamas when it comes to the fighting in Gaza were, yes, thanks to IDF's complete incompetence, Hamas's knowledge of the territory, guerrilla tactics, and, just plain military successes. But also the third is that IDF's targets have always been Gazan infrastructure and Palestinian citizenry. Thank you very much, Boyer Mule, for the 8 months, you fucking legend. Thank you, Ronko, for the 100 bits. The Austrian painter had like 25% support at his highest, and the fact that there's a bigger proportion of people thinking that Israel did not go far enough is worrying as fuck. Yes, it's I mean, when you have Hitler didn't have a country for 70 years, okay? Nazism didn't last for 70 years. It didn't move through multiple generations worth of brainwashing to even create such levels of support for its deeds the way Israel does and has. Systems inform ideology, and Israel has existed for long enough for the absolute majority of its citizenry to have completely melted into lunacy, because that is the only thing they know.
And they've been very good at hiding their abilities or the damage done to them. But clearly Hamas has been damaged. I mean, you can't sustain a year of the most intense aerial bombing in modern history and come out totally intact. But they're still fighting. They're still carrying out operations in Gaza.
So where do things stand with the ceasefire deal? Remember, Israel and Hamas aren't speaking directly to each other. The U.S., along with mediators from Qatar and Egypt, are driving the negotiations. In late May, U.S. President Joe Biden presented a 3-stage ceasefire plan. It involved Israeli forces withdrawing from Gaza and all the captives eventually being released in exchange for Palestinian prisoners held by Israel, and a final stage, ending the war and reconstructing Gaza. At the time, Hamas said they'd go for it if Israel did. But Netanyahu said he wouldn't sign up to a deal that included a permanent end to the war. Since then, there have been more negotiations, and another obstacle has emerged.
This is the Philadelphia corridor.
Netanyahu started insisting that Israeli troops should remain in a strip of land along Gaza's southern border with Egypt, known as the Philadelphia corridor, which Hamas is against. All this makes the prospect of a ceasefire anytime soon look increasingly slim. In early September, the U.S. Secretary of State said a deal was 90% there. But a recent report in the Wall Street Journal quotes U.S. officials saying they no longer believe a deal is likely before the end of Joe Biden's presidency in January. And now the backdrop is even more fraught with what's going on in Lebanon, and the escalation in the fight between Israel and Hezbollah, which is an ally of Hamas.
Israel's bombing campaign and ground offensive in Lebanon has displaced 1 million Lebanese people, about a fifth of the population. More than 2,000 people have been killed, including hundreds of women and children, and several Hezbollah commanders.
Okay, I need to bring you some breaking news. The Israeli army has officially announced that it has killed the head of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah.
This is probably the most significant point that we could say represents very likelihood or high likelihood of a major escalation.
Yeah, we called it here on stream as well. IDF cocks are super hard right now because they've been on a win after win after win. Obviously unhinged to call it a win, but from their point of view, win after win. And they've tested the grounds. Sorry for those of you who are hearing this for a second time, but I think it's important for those new in chat for you to hear it again. They've tested the ground with what happens with Western support if we kill 1,000 Palestinians. Nothing. What happens if we kill 10,000? Nothing. What happens if we kill 40,000? Most likely 200,000, but let's go with the Gaza report, 40,000. Nothing. Okay, what happens if we explode the pagers? Nothing. Okay, what happens when we literally kill the leader of Hezbollah? Nothing. And now they're like, okay, what happens if we invade another country? You know what happened? They went with it. They were like, yes, this is a temporary special military temporary occupation of military operation. The same thing that they were making fun of Russia for calling its war. Now they're like, oh no, this is not war. This is like the temporary movement of troops across borders where missiles are launched in directions and the tanks are driven over lands that are not necessarily defined as Israel. But it's not a war. It's not a war. Trust me, it is not a full-out invasion of one country over off its neighbor. No, not at all. Trust me. Go back to work. Everything is okay.
And I think that unfortunately that means we're in a likely scenario of an even worse level of warfare and escalation than we've even seen over the last almost 12 months since October 7th.
So 1 year into the Gaza war, the outlook is really, really bleak. And unless something big changes, it's hard to see where the answers are going to come from.
The bleakness is very serious. Iran actually goes in, thousands if not millions die. Iran doesn't do anything, thousands if not millions die. And the third option is as likely as Santa Claus breaking the door behind me and giving me a scooter. And that's the U.S. pulling back its support to Israel. That is the only way this doesn't turn into even more bloodshed. That is the only way I can think of. Which again, is Santa Claus breaking in through the door and giving me a scooter? Let's wait. Maybe he does. I wish I made a sketch where I paid a friend of mine to break in the door as a Santa Claus and give me a scooter, but I didn't. My streams aren't that good. I'm not fucking IShowSpeed, okay? No, nothing happened, yeah.
We need to know that Gaza is more than just a war zone. It is home to over 2 million people trying to survive amid unbearable conditions. We are resilient, but we're not superheroes, and we need the world's help to end this suffering.
Okay, so how has this suffering been proliferated? Obviously through funding by the United States. But how has, especially in the first 3 to 4 months of the beginning of the Gaza genocide, how has this been pitched to the wider American population? How were they capable of overtaking the narrative and somehow depicting Israel throughout the past 365 days as 100% good guys that are only doing things in the interest of defeating terrorism and beating the big, bad, evil, brown, did I say brown? No, just evil, big, bad guy. Inside Western media's reporting on Gaza that has also come out a day or two ago, let us look at the media spin on this through this equally interesting documentary.
This is a moment in history that we don't often see, where we actually see genocide being perpetrated as it's happening. And in a situation where Western governments like the United States...
And for the first time, a fully digitally connected world where you are one click away from seeing the reality on the ground, posted not only by journalists, but fellow working class men, women, and NBs recording it with their own hand on their own phone and posting on all the platforms that we have access to. This is absolutely never happened in a quote-unquote conflict as large as this one before.
It's the UK and other.
Genocide live streamed, as Comrade Crip likes to say. They've been building the conditions to allow Izzy much more tolerance and support for decades. Absolutely. Without the war on terror, people wouldn't be so willing to just believe white people when they tell you brown people are terrorists. Absolutely. Was this intentional or not? Big question. But it doesn't really matter if it was. The Israelis are fully utilizing this fact. They are fully utilizing this fact. And the only thing that's sad is seeing so many of our dear friends over from the so-called imperial core falling for Bushian, okay, George Bush level basic oversimplified propaganda. That's the saddest part. That just how easy it's been. How easy it's been. But maybe it goes deeper than that, and I hope maybe this documentary can explain this.
Others have been complicit. You've got Western media.
Not Live Leak. Of course, we always had Live Leak, my friend, but it's one thing for you to even know what Live Leak is, which I believe is like 0.01% of the world's population. And it's a completely different thing to open TikTok because you want to learn about the new recipe or watch a bunch of thick set boys and girls shake that thing, and then you see footage of babies without heads, okay? It's a bit different. We're much more connected than back then.
That have actually become a part of the mechanism of genocide. That's what's different.
Speaking of mechanisms, here on Twitch, there is a mechanism far, far better than genocide, but one that is nonetheless very annoying, and that is forcing you into watching advertising. Well, if you want to support my reporting and have an adless experience by avoiding the ad that plays in exactly 2 minutes, please do consider becoming a sub for $6 a month or for less in some other countries, and for free through Prime, or by donating to those less privileged than you so they can have an adless experience as well. Thank you very much for even considering it. The ad will play in 1 minute and 45 seconds. Thank you kindly.
That's what's frightening.
When political leaders speak of genocide, they repeat a time-worn mantra: never again. Over the past...
This is very good. Good for you, Richard. A documentary that's about Western media lies and Western media extremely biased reporting on the plight of the Palestinian people. You need to have a white dude at the forefront, okay? A white dude that looks like he would be working on CNN or BBC at the forefront. Otherwise, like 80% of Western white people will literally tune out. If this was a lovely lady that was wearing a, for example, traditional Muslim garment, nobody would fucking watch this, okay? Absolutely nobody. So aesthetics-wise, good for you.
Last year for the Palestinian...
$8 is crazy. Why the fuck is it $8 for some of you? What the fuck? Why the fuck is it $8 for some of you? Are you fucking kidding me? Why the fuck is it $8? What the fuck? What the actual fuck?
...of Gaza again has become reality. A genocide broadcast almost in real time.
Thank you, Gabriel, for giving another child soldier. You fucking old man. I love you. Thank you very much.
By its victims. This is a film about an alternative version of that reality. One told by major Western news organizations. How they have provided cover for an historic crime. And have seen their inner workings exposed like never before. We have spoken with more than a dozen journalists who have been covering the Gaza genocide for the Western world's leading agenda-setting outlets, including the BBC.
A new child soldier, subscriber.
What are those who figure like fucked up footage that I should skip? Timestamps. How figgy? Yes. Ah, shit. Really? Fuck, that's a lot of TOS. Okay, let me copy it. Let me copy it. 1 second. But that's a lot of skipping. Okay.
In the UK and CNN in the US.
Thank you, Hakeem, but South African for the gifted sub as well. Thank you very much. Ain't nobody watching ads in this bitch.
Both describe a repeated failure to report the truth on this story.
Subscriber.
And Noam Drunsky, thank you very much, Noam Drunsky. And Ufigi is telling you if it costs less if you go through your browser if you're on mobile.
Prior to October 7th, I hand on heart believed that CNN went to great lengths to report the truth and exclusively the truth. But after October 7th, the ease with which I saw news lines that supported the Israeli narrative come out really shook me. There were times where CNN was happy to push hard, but on balance, it's very clear where we lie, regrettably, and it's not entirely with the truth.
Gaza has massively exposed the hypocrisies at the heart of the BBC. The fact that it very much does respond to influence, it very much can be swayed. It does follow the government line broadly on certain stories. The BBC...
Of course it fucking does. It absolutely fucking does. Absolutely fucking does. I don't know what kind of fucking mountain you need to be living on in order for you to have learned this only now. But if you have not learned it even now, then again, help. Please, you need help. I'm not making fun of you. Please get help.
It's meant to be a public service. It's meant to be for the people. But
yeah, but when it's in the UK, it's a public service broadcaster. When it's in, I don't know, China or Kazakhstan or something, it's a state-run media. State-run media. Ooh!
At the end of the day, its purse strings are held by the government.
No, Sector Gaza. It is not a state broadcaster. It is a media of the people.
And that you can see in the coverage.
Down, TOS footage, apparently.
The October 7th attack by Hamas, in which more than 1,100 Israelis were killed, almost 800 of them civilians, was the deadliest day in Israel's history.
Yeah, I know. Intentionally. I'm moving away from the video because it's apparently against TOS, that particular footage, thanks to my lovely Ufigi.
As they launched their retaliation, Israeli officials made clear this was not just a war on Hamas. Everyone in Gaza would be fair game.
אנחנו מטילים מצור מוחלט על העיר עזה. אין חשמל, אין מזון, אין מים, אין דלק. הכל...
I will beat my wife. Proceeds to beat wife. Best friend goes out and says, he never intended to beat wife, nor did he beat wife. Western media. He never beat wife. Confirmed. He never beat wife. Yugo never beat wife. Yugo never wife beat. But sir, he said he's gonna beat his wife and he just beat his wife. No. After never have beat wife, he said he no beat wife. We believe. Thank you very much.
סגור.
It's an entire nation out there that is responsible.
But
entire nation, we do kill. But actually, no, we kill only target. Okay, I believe second part of what you say. We unbiased media. Decapitated babies! Yes, believe immediately. Believe. Print. Decapitated babies.
As with any...
It's like mainstream media is just schizo posting, unironically, 24/7.
Genocide, the first step was to dehumanize the enemy.
Blood-thirsty terrorists
Exactly.
who rape and burn people.
Again, like George Bush 101. And everyone was like, yeah. We made so much fun of the fucking boomers, man. How did they believe that fucking WMD shit? How did they believe the WMD shit? This is how. You're believing the 2024 version of WMD shit.
Alive, and it's been reported on the BBC.
What happened on October 7th included acts that were bad enough in and of themselves. But if you want to create a context for dehumanization and genocide, you need to go further.
The Israeli Prime Minister's spokesman just confirmed babies and toddlers were found with their heads decapitated.
We saw false reports about beheaded babies, which never happened, about a systematic campaign of mass rape, which never happened, about babies being cut from the abdomen of their mothers, which never happened. And
remember babies in incubators for the Iraq War? Well, again, they're not original. They're just doing the same. They're doing the absolute same thing. We're like, man, we won't fall for the shit that boomers fell for. They were fucking idiots, man. Come on, we don't do that shit. We don't do that shit.
And a whole series of other horrific atrocities. These were deliberately concocted official stories that were being provided in particular to a Western audience in order to create an atmosphere in which the crimes that were to follow would go on unchecked.
And that information and that lie could not be delivered to a Western audience without what? What were they an audience to? CNN, BBC, Fox News, MSNBC, etc., etc., New York Times. So next time your professor tells you these are academically approved papers, ask them about the source for decapitated babus, okay?
Shortly after October 7th, Israel sealed off Gaza's borders, including to foreign reporters. The Palestinian journalists...
Again, the same quote-unquote journalists and media that completely ignore as Israel also kills what? One would think that they would at least care about their own, you know? That they would at least care about their own. But no, they don't give a shit even if they kill journalists. Man, we're good, dude.
Left to tell the story would soon be killed at an unprecedented rate. Israeli forces quickly set their sights on Gaza's healthcare system. One by one, hospitals, swelling with patients and refugees, came under attack.
The difference between this genocide and the other wars that I had been in, the wars in Gaza, the 2021 war, the 2014 war, the 2012, 2009, and even the war in Yemen, the war in Syria, the comparison between them and a genocide is the comparison between a flood and a tsunami.
Yeah.
In Gaza, 50% of the wounded were children, and they remain so. The massacres never stop, the operating rooms never stop, and even when you're doing that, you then discover that you've only treated a small percentage of the wounded.
Israel wanted to begin a campaign to start taking out all of these medical facilities.
101 ethnic cleansing.
In part, they were concerned that Hamas combatants were going to be treated in them, but also this was part of a war of annihilation to try to force the Palestinians in Gaza into a constant state of motion, moving.
Speaking of journalists, thank you very much, beautiful chatter. 1 year and climbing, Israel responsible for record journalist death toll. Israel's conduct in the war in Gaza has exacted an unprecedented and horrific toll on Palestinian journalists. It doesn't matter if they're Palestinian or Kazakhstani. Okay, I don't know why you keep using Kazakhstan as an example. And the region's media landscape, at least 128 journalists and media workers, all but 5 of them Palestinian, have been killed. More journalists than have died in the course of any year since CPJ began documenting journalist killings in 1992. All of the killings, except 2 Israeli journalists killed on October 7, 2023, attacked by Hamas on Israel, were carried out by Israeli forces. CPJ has found that at least 5 journalists were specifically targeted by Israel for their work. At least 69 Palestinian journalists have been arrested since the start of the war, 66 by Israel and 3 by Palestinian authorities. 43 were still behind bars as of October 4th. On a per capita basis, Israeli authorities now hold the highest number of detained journalists in the world in a year. In the world in a given year over the past 2 decades. The killings, along with censorship, arrests, The killings, along with censorship, arrests, the continued ban on independent media access into Gaza, persistent internet shutdowns, the destruction of media outlets, and displacement of Gaza media community have severely restricted reporting on the war and hampered documentation. In Israel, press freedom has been curtailed by the passage of a new law that empowers the government to ban media outlets. Okay? Is that enough for you to think that they are actively targeting them? Yes, it is. Thank you very much, Resistant, for the sub and for the 2 months. Thank you very kindly.
Moving from one place to another. Nowhere is safe for you, not even a hospital.
A home, a school, a hospital that hosts terrorists is not a...
Yeah, I don't think in Warhammer 40k the fucking Space Marines target journalists as directly as this.
home, is not a school, and is not a hospital. It's a terror base.
The Israelis were pumping the public with information that was meant to convince people that hospitals are not really hospitals.
Hamas was using the patients in that hospital as a human shield.
And this was a narrative that we saw unfolding almost from the beginning.
By November 10th, just over 1 month into Israel's assault, half of all hospitals in Gaza were out of service. One of them was the Rantisi Children's Hospital, which Israel bombed and then raided after it claimed Hamas was using it to hide Israeli captives. Once inside, military spokesperson Daniel...
Oh my God, remember this, chat? Remember the little pictures on the walls? Remember the elevator shaft that was a tunnel to hell out of which little Hamas devils and imps come out and they try and find little Israeli Jewish children to drag back down into the depths of hell.
Hagari said Israeli forces had found proof and gave CNN special access.
Evidence, Hagari says, points towards Hamas and possible hostage presence below the hospital.
Hagari showed CNN's reporter, Nick Robertson, a document on the wall, which he claimed was a roster of Hamas members keeping guard over Israeli captives.
This is a guarding list. Every terrorist has his own shift.
This became quite an embarrassing moment for CNN.
I wonder if the terrorists are hella unionized, man. They got shifts and everything. They got, you got 8 hours plus 1 hour break. Maybe they're very progressive.
Wonderful.
Maybe it's like 6 hours with 1 hour break. Like 10, 8, 10, 9. No, they actually work all day. Peace. Man, Hamas, do something about unionizing, dude. Come on. You can't have dudes working all day like this. Jesus Christ. Come on. Thank you, Victor, for the sub. Welcome, my dear friend.
Every terrorist has his own shift.
This became quite an embarrassing moment for CNN because it wasn't a Hamas roster at all. It was a calendar. And written in Arabic was the days of the week.
No. It's Arabic. That means it's terrorist. And that means it's Hamas. Jesus fucking Christ. What are you, a fucking liberal? Everything's become so woke, man. Pfft. You think Arabs have calendars? Pfft. You think Arabs have numbers? What, they kind of invented math? The fuck off. Of course, an Englishman invented math. What the fuck are you talking about?
But the report that came out from Nick Robertson just swallowed up Israel's claim.
To make matters worse, the allegation that the calendar was a Hamas roster had already been debunked on social media the day before the CNN broadcast. According to...
You should do an app with Prols Pod. We definitely should, and we probably will. Thank you very much. Also, thank you for the 6 months, you fucking legend. Thank you, Drew.
Multiple CNN journalists and an internal WhatsApp.
Algebra should be abolished, brother. Indoctrinating my children. If it was good, why would it be called algebra? Why would it be called algebra, brothers? First you start with algebra, and next you have Al-Qaeda. Ay. Do you not know this? Oh, I wish I used that fucking excuse when I was in college. God. Thank you, Jeb, for the 100 bits, brother.
Blog that we obtained. A Palestinian producer alerted her colleagues, including Robertson, but was ignored. The report went out. First...
But you know what's worse than algebra? Advert Ismas. Advert Isma. Advert Isma. Does that not sound like a terrorist sect from Turkmenistan? Advert Isma. And it will attack your eyes with evil Islamist advertisement propaganda in exactly 1 minute and 30 seconds. Protect your eyes, true patriots, by subscribing to this true patriot in a mask, Yugopnik, for $6 a month, or for less in certain countries, or for free through Prime, or by gifting to somebody less privileged than you. And save yourself the same way you have sold yourself from Al-Jibra, also from Advertism, a famous terrorist cult leader.
On television, but there was...
Here I have a chat. Do you want me to show you the schedule of Advertisma? Advertisma has a very set schedule here on Twitch, where they attack your eyes, okay?
Still time to correct it before it went up online. Another producer tried to make that case.
One colleague saw the report and flagged to Nick, hold on, people are saying that this is not accurate. And apparently Nick said, are you meaning to say that Hagari is lying to us? So there was a chance for this to get stopped, but Nick was adamant and it went out. He's a very...
What a journalist. You said a thing, I absolutely believe you. Somebody then comes and like, dude, this might not be correct. No. I believe the man.
Experienced correspondent. If you are trusting the Israeli government over your own colleagues, then you need to have your wrist slapped at the
then you work for Israel.
Very least, because your reporting has given cover to the Israeli operation.
No proof would ever emerge of captives held at the Rantisi hospital. Meanwhile, Israeli forces had turned their attention to the Shifa hospital, the largest in the Gaza Strip, responsible for 40% of its healthcare capacity. They began by releasing an animated video of a tunnel network beneath the hospital, which they described as Hamas's command and control center.
Holy shit, somebody got paid good bucks on Fiverr for this shit, man.
The White House and Pentagon today
Some fucking designer that never knew anything about algebra.
confirmed my reporting yesterday that the U.S. has intelligence suggesting Hamas is operating a command.
Yo, Hassanabi Industries. By the way, Hassanabi Industries is my phenomenal editor. How much would you charge me for a Hamas tunnel video, bro? How much do you think that Fiverr guy got, bro?
Center under the Al-Shifa hospital.
As Israeli forces closed in on the hospital, those claims were repeated, often with little to no...
Jeb Tush 350. Man, you're so much cheaper than Sanabi Industries. Dude, Sanabi Industries, you're losing your job, bro.
Pushback on Western news outlets.
And did the IDF show you anything that resembled an actual command and control center?
What we saw, Kana, was a pretty sophisticated looking tunnel.
The New York Times and other...
Here is cartoon. All of Western media. Oh, I love cartoon. Means it's good. Wait, what? It's like literally like. So CNN, we have special footage. CNN, listen. We have special footage. Look, this is footage directly from Gaza. This is footage directly from Gaza. They have built a massive terrorist Hamas eye that can see everything. You're masturbating, it can see in your room, okay? It can see what Joe Biden is doing every morning, afternoon, and evening, okay? This is yes, no, for real. This is in Gaza. Also, this is the world's biggest volcano. It will erupt and destroy the planet. These are special Hamas detachments being ridden by Palestinian children. These are Palestinian death rays, we call them, specially delivered to them by Iran, okay, by Iran. And here behind the hills, Palestinian terrorist groups are hiding, and they are going into Israel as we speak. Israel, how does it look? Let me show you. Okay, this is 100% real footage of Israel. Straight for you, CNN. Nobody else has seen this footage before. You believe us? Of course you do. Okay. Beautiful land of Israel. Okay. This is Israel, and the other thing is Gaza. Can you now please show this to the millions of viewers you have? Thank you very much. CNN like, cha-ching! Yes, please!
News organizations began to then create their own renditions of what they, I guess, imagined Hamas had underneath Al-Shifa Hospital.
Gabriel, dude, cut it out. You're going to tank my stock in Iran. Who space lasers? Space lasers!
Promoting the narrative that something very nefarious is taking place. That was the moment, and you can trace it.
I feel even Hooters might be Hamas. Like, starts with an H, has a repeating letter. Like, very, very scary. Thank you, Jeb, for another beat. And thank you, Gabriel, for the beats.
That the floodgates were opened for the Israelis.
What's the Hooter to Hamas pipeline?
That they perceived that they now had a green light to wage war against Palestinian hospitals and medical facilities in Gaza.
Do you have what you need to treat people?
So we've run out of burns dressings, and there are over 100 patients with burns covering over 40% of their bodies.
One of probably the most distressing aspects about that period when I was working at Shifa Hospital is that we were getting hundreds and hundreds of wounded. The bombing around Shifa was continuous.
Having tasted Hooters chicken, it is definitely not Hamas. The food is mid. I don't think you go there for the food, brother.
And so you'd get phone calls, and all the Western journalists wanted to ask about was, when you walk around, do you see any tunnels?
Israel continues to maintain that beneath it in underground tunnels, Hamas has a command center. Is this something that you're aware of?
Hooters also sounds like Houthi. Maybe that will finally convince the majority of the American population to side with Palestinians if they start bombing their Hooters, dude.
And if you say that I've never seen any of the tunnels, then you are.
And then when they bomb the Hooters, they will show pictures of massive bazongas, and they will say, "Look at all the evidence of the bombs." I am 12 years old. I apologize. Look at those bombs.
Dismissed immediately.
Too easy. I know. Too easy. I know.
After 2 weeks of bombing the Shifa compound, Israeli forces stormed the hospital on November 15th.
The target of the war is to defeat Hamas.
Once again, Daniel Hagari was there to show the world some weapons he claimed belonged to Hamas, alongside some tunnels, many of which were built by Israel in the 1980s. Nothing that remotely resembled a command center.
Here we have air conditioning. Air conditioning is Hamas.
80s. Nothing that remotely resembled a command center.
Every American home is actually Hamas. The only place that is not Hamas is Germany and Switzerland because they hate ACs, okay? Oh my God, I have an AC above me. Is Hamas seeing everything I do? Everything I do on the casting couch? Holy shit.
Since the raids on Shifa and Rantisi, every hospital in Gaza has been attacked, put out of service, or demolished. Witnesses have described mass executions, including of patients and medical staff, testimonies that barely registered in the Western news cycle.
أصعب شيء والخوف اللي شفته لما كانوا يطخوا النزلان قدام عينينا وكانوا يفحروا الجوار ويحطوا 5-6 بقلب جورة ويدفنوهم.
Mass graves were found with hundreds.
So something like this, no reporting. Guy pointing at calendar saying this is proof of Hamas. Yes, we immediately take your word for it. Western media is objective. It is an academic source.
Of bodies.
That was close.
Over
TOS.
800 health workers, doctors, nurses, paramedics who've been killed. That kind of dismantlement of health was a critical component of the genocidal machine, because what that did is it ensured that anybody who's wounded die of their wounds, and that anyone with a chronic disease would eventually die of that disease. You add to the mix the famine, and so the wounded are now dying because they are malnourished.
This, they say, is a Hamas tunnel.
You destroy infrastructure, you make them afraid, and then you quite literally kill them. Ethnic cleansing, I said this 700,000 fucking times. That uses genocide as a tool and the destruction of infrastructure as a tool, okay? You want people to no longer feel like they could live somewhere, no matter how strong their principles are, you know? You need sewage, and you need water, and you need food. No matter how strong your principles are, your stomach is stronger.
That connects to a tunnel network underneath the Al-Shifa hospital.
The Western media was critical to the process of demonization of the Palestinian health system. And what is shocking is that
Israel publishes proof Hamas is hiding terror tunnels under hospital.
When the Israelis went into Shifa and there were no real evidence.
Chat, stop fucking fed posting. I love you. I know you're passionate. Stop fed posting, okay? Stop annoying my mods. I love you very much. Power levels, please. I love you. Thank you. Come on, you're smarter than this. You're smarter than this.
Of these bunkers. These media outlets did not recant their original stories.
Hello, comrade, greetings from Serbia. Pozdrav, brate, kako si?
Jody Rudoran spent 2 decades as a reporter and an editor for the New York Times. She rejects the idea that these features of Western news coverage are the result of any inherent bias.
I begin from a premise that most journalists who are covering conflicts are doing so because they believe that bearing witness to what governments and terror groups do to each other is critically important to the functioning of democracy and of a civil society. These people are trying their very hardest to do the very best that they can. What I think is not true is that there is any kind of systemic bias, like in the structural editorial processes of these newsrooms. I think these newsrooms are trying to report a 360-degree view of an extremely complicated storyline that many of the actors in the storyline don't want to acknowledge the complexity of.
Western news outlets are not monoliths.
Israeli soldiers have been filmed standing over stripped and kneeling detainees in Gaza. But these are medical staff.
Okay, then if they're not insanely biased, then they're horrible at their fucking job. Then they're horrible at their fucking job because this is the most cut and dry, quote unquote, conflict that we've had in the last 30 fucking years. Okay? There is the end of it's not that complex. Genocide is not that complex. Genocide is not that complex. You bombing the shit out of a hospital, then journalists being like, okay, why did you do it? You saying because there's terrorists hiding underneath it in tunnels. And then the journalists are like, okay, show us the tunnels. You just show the basement and a calendar. And the journalists like, okay, there were terrorists under the hospital. It's good that you killed thousands of fucking people surrounding the hospital, in the hospital. And because you destroyed the hospital, probably thousands more will die. If that is not bias, then that is complete incompetence. You should be fucking fired, and you should have whatever journalism license they give out revoked.
Colleagues spent weeks.
I'm joking. I know you don't get a journalism license. Okay, I'm a guy in a mask on Twitch doing journalism. Okay, and somehow I'm more professional than fucking guys with $400,000 worth of a salary working for CNN. Okay. That's why you should subscribe right now and not watch the ad that plays in 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Do you want advertising down your throat? No. Do you want Yugopnik to eventually be making more money than CNN and BBC and Fox News reporters? You absolutely do. Click the subscribe button. Make Yugopnik richer than your everyday CNN reporter while watching no fucking ads. I think that is the best pitch of all time. Thank you very much.
That killed more than...
I promise, when I walk into a basement and see a calendar and somebody tells me this is Hamas, I will say, no, it is not.
half of the...
That is the journalistic integrity that we promise here on YugopnikTwitch, YugopnikTwitch.com. covering 24/7 news cycles.
Of one family.
Many mainstream journalists do try.
I promise that I will be biased, for every journalist is biased. Just I will always be 100% biased, but against Israel. Literally, I will be. I absolutely am. I will be. But that is very easy to be biased against Israel, because 99.9% of the time in your bias, you will end up being what? Fucking factually correct.
To speak truth to power. And their reporting has
How do you not be... How can you not be biased against an apartheid genocidal colonial regime? Okay, it's like being biased against cancer, being biased against AIDS. Oh my God, I'm so biased against AIDS. Let's go talk to AIDS and see their perspective on why they're annihilating somebody's fucking immune system. Hey AIDS, why are you doing this? AIDS is like, oh, there are terrorist tunnels under the immune system of my target. No, I will be biased against AIDS. I will be biased against Nazi Germany. I will be biased against the fucking reactionaries in the US. I will be biased against Israel. Oh my fucking God.
Times undercut Israel's claims, exposed its war crimes. Journalists...
Forgive me if I don't fully trust the guys committing the big G. Exactly.
At the Times, CNN, and the BBC have told us it can be a struggle to get those stories past editors. Israel's denial of access into Gaza has made the job even more difficult. But it's the larger trends, rather than individual examples, that shape the effect that media coverage has on audiences. On the Gaza story, they have been quantifiable.
Sorry, we welcome all viruses here. Absolutely, no.
And point in one direction. A study by the news website The Intercept of post-October 7th coverage by the New York Times, the Washington Post, and the LA Times found that Israeli deaths were covered on average 16 times more often than when the victims were Palestinian. Words like slaughter and massacre were used to describe attacks that killed Israelis at...
This you cannot counter-argue. This is fucking statistics. This is cold fucking facts on how it's being reported on. This is proof that it's fucking biased or that it's incompetent. The difference between bias and incompetence, I do not care for. I do not care for. If you're incompetent, I don't watch, and you are not a good source. If you're biased, I don't watch because you're not a good source. End of fucking conversation. If what The Intercept did, if you analyze the last fucking 100,000 or 500 or how many articles, and that is the fucking difference, that is statistics, suka. Okay? End. Video can stop now. Stream ended. Goodbye. Have a great day.
At least 60 times more frequently than for mass killings of Palestinians.
Either incompetence or bias is propaganda. Bias is propaganda, my friend.
When those terms were almost never used.
The New York Times headlines are filled with volume after volume of story where Palestinians appear to have been killed in a mysterious attack waged by no one. Palestinians are always referred to as dying in the passive tense. It's very clear that there is an agenda from the leadership of the New York Times, and that's been attested to by whistleblowers in the newsroom who said that it's very clear that they're steering coverage in particular direction and that Palestinians are subjected to a different set of standards than Israelis when talking about their deaths, their sufferings, or their perspectives.
There was a massacre on October 7th. There were atrocities committed. It was barbaric. I think those were appropriate words to use, and the response was intense. It involved a lot of death, destruction, and displacement. But I'm not sure that massacre, barbaric, and atrocity are appropriate terms, certainly not for the full scale of the war. There are individual attacks within the war that may, where some of those words may be appropriate. So it's just, you're talking about two very different things, and they deserve different adjectives.
For Sarah at the BBC, double standards could also be seen in the selection of interviewees and how they were treated. In the days after October 7th, 7th, the BBC set up an internal group chat in which producers could vet potential interviewees based on their online footprint.
When the head hits the palm, when the head hits the palm, not the palm hits the head, but the head hits the palm.
We have obtained messages from that chat, which Sarah says was
From what chat? My chat? No. What?
used disproportionately against defenders of Palestinian rights.
It was overwhelmingly guests on the Palestinian side of things who were being looked into. Palestinians being flagged up for using the word Zionist, which isn't something to flag necessarily. Even the occasional NGO was thrown in, for example, Human Rights Watch. These are organizations that we've really relied on in terms of covering Ukraine and various other conflicts. And
Yo.
overwhelming
against from that chat, which Sarah says was used disproportionately against defenders of Palestinian rights.
It was overwhelmingly guests on the Palestinian side of things who were being looked into.
Can I also ask about Farah? His Facebook is here, and he's the head of the Sheffield Palestine Solidarity Campaign. So it'd be good to know if they're okay too.
Palestinians being flagged up for using the word Zionist, which isn't something to flag necessarily. Even the occasional NGO was thrown in, for example, Human Rights Watch. These are organizations that we've really relied on in terms of covering Ukraine and various other conflicts. And now and again, they would check an Israeli guest. But there was no balance in what was going on. Israeli spokespeople who we did have on were given a lot of free rein to say whatever they wanted with very little pushback.
Babies were set on fire. Babies were shot in the head.
Whereas any Palestinian guest...
Babies were dancing Serbian chora as they drank rakia and screamed, "Long live Palestina." I promise, chat. I promise, okay?
was asked to condemn Hamas.
But I want to ask you
They
specifically.
were singing Panteri, Palestinski dobrovolci, okay?
Specifically about Hamas's actions today. Do you support them?
Almost as though condemning Hamas was the sort of price to pay before they could be humanized in our coverage. Many of our own presenters, when faced with an interviewee who was Palestinian or who had lost family in Gaza, there was just such a lack of compassion.
I'm sorry for your own personal loss. I mean, can I just be clear, though? You cannot condone the killing of civilians.
Demon.
In Israel, can you?
As a result, a number of producers were really reticent about putting a vulnerable Palestinian guest in front of a BBC presenter.
The mounting double standards have provoked a backlash in the newsrooms of many Western outlets. Journalists at the New York Times and the BBC have resigned publicly, citing their consciences. Others have tried to change things.
Chats that show that they vetted Palestinian guests with greater intensity. Journalists that work for those institutions leaving and saying that they are leaving because of the outward bias against Palestinians. Statistics showing by The Intercept of the vastly different manner through which they reported on Israeli deaths and Palestinian deaths. Open, unquestioning belief in insane evidence such as calendars or being Hamas or elevator shafts being tunnels or animated videos of Hamas bases being, a appropriate source. How many other factors does somebody need to list to you in order for them to present CNN, BBC, Fox News, etc.? Fox News we knew, but let's talk about CNN and BBC and MSNBC to an extent. What else do you need them to show you so that you can agree that these are biased propaganda outlets that are always 100% in line with whatever the U.S. status quo defines as the narrative that needs to be placed in front of people's eyes and ears. I don't know what else I can give you, okay? It's a great documentary. I don't know what else you need to say case fucking closed.
Things from the inside. BBC staff have repeatedly
Do you think that years from now these people will look back at themselves in disgust for this? No, these are parasites that suck on the bottommost forgotten part of the nipple of the drained out titty of the status quo. Okay, these are rats that scurry around the land only to nibble on whatever information somebody gives them so that they can repitch it as actual information. No, these guys were never in it for the principle. They are in it so that their articles get fucking clicks, and so that they get invited to a democratic convention once every 4 years. They're not fucking journalists, okay? They're keyboard mercenaries, brother, okay? They sleep like fucking babies. They'll probably even write an article against all the evil people that were supporting Israel back then, without even blinking twice. Thank you very much, Ronka, for 100 bits. Ain't nobody looked behind and was like, ooh, it's bad that I support the bombing of Yugoslavia. That one's a bit more complicated, but I agree.
Complained to the network's director general. One email we obtained, signed in February by more than 20 journalists, warned the corporation's coverage risked aiding and abetting genocide. Staff at the Times leaked details of an internal rebellion over a now notorious report that claimed Hamas weaponized sexual violence on October 7th, an allegation that was exposed as baseless. 70 journalism professors have demanded the Times do an investigation into that report. The Times did conduct an investigation, not into its story, but to find the source of the leak. Numerous journalists we have spoken to describe variations of the same theme. Interference from executives and editors, the kind they have never faced on any other story.
There's a divide between the many good journalists within CNN who jump through so many hoops to tell the true story and...
Yeah, as always, as us fucking annoying Marxists like to say, it's a fucking system. When it's a corporation that is profit-driven, whose main owners are so fucking wealthy that they intermingle with British, German, French, and most importantly, American political establishment elites, they will push your entire media house towards a particular strand of bias, because they themselves also have to confirm what? The main editors in your goddamn department. Are there good people that become cops? Yes, most likely. But that's not a fucking conversation that's worth having about cops, because cops as an institution are inherently corrupt and inherently serve the status quo. Okay? Same with corporate media journalism. Are there pretty good people that become journalists? Yes, of course. Pretty good people that work for CNN or even fucking Fox News? Yes, probably. But they cannot do proper journalism because of how it is set up, especially on divisive points that go directly against the main party line of the United States at times of war. Systematic view, systematic view, systematic view, systematic view. It is lo importante.
Pushback from high-level management demanding that you tone down criticisms of Israel. There was a period of time when we couldn't call airstrikes in Gaza airstrikes unless we had confirmation from the Israelis.
Oh yes, systemic, not systematic. No, forever I will say systematic. God fucking damn it.
Explosion at the largest refugee camp in Gaza. Joining us now is Lieutenant Colonel Richard Heck.
It's really depressing because we would not be doing this in any other place. We would not tolerate the need to ask, say, the...
Dude, they literally, like, imagine if they were interviewing a Russian general, okay? A Russian general. Yo, what do you think about the Ukrainians? That's literally what they're doing here. Hey, Israeli death commander Obergruppenführer 7788 1488. What do you think about the dogs?
Russians, whether they bombed a hospital in Kiev. So the double standards are really shocking. You try and change managers' minds, you feel like you're making progress, and then something happens, and you feel like...
Hey, Mr. Putin, do you think it's okay for Russia to invade Ukraine?
You're back at square one. For example, more recently, on the day that 40,000 Palestinian deaths were announced, Mike McCarthy, who's number 3 in the organization, said in the morning editorial call that we need to contextualize and hold Hamas accountable. And that was...
There you go. Listen to this again.
McCarthy, who's number 3. On the day that 40,000 Palestinian deaths were announced, Mike McCarthy, who's number 3 in the organization, said in the morning editorial call that we need to contextualize and hold Hamas accountable. And that was reflected in the frame.
Conversation ends. Conversation ends. Conversation ends. Ends.
Framing from the shows.
The Gaza Health Ministry says more than 40,000 Palestinians have been killed since the October 7th Hamas massacre in Israel that triggered the war.
Multiple journalists
Nah.
in emails, in meetings, have raised concerns about a lot of the things I've said in this interview. The disparity in the language used, the inconsistency in approach compared to other story areas.
Thank you, Romka, very much for the 100 bits. BBC be asking the Austrian painter about if Jews and Slavs are being held in Auschwitz humanely. Exactly.
It's like Russia and...
No, we must talk about the Auschwitz. We must talk about the Auschwitz in the context of what the Jewish people have done to the European continent for the last 100 years, okay? Always remind the dear viewers of the context of why we are putting them in concentration camps.
Ukraine. The lack of humanization when it comes to Palestinians. The lack of context about this conflict before the 7th of October. And it hasn't really made a difference, because there's just a sort of unwillingness among the executive to accept evidence. For me personally, it meant I could no longer see my future at the BBC.
The lessons learned in 1945, if mankind would remember them, could make the world a better place for all men.
In the wake of the World War II Holocaust, Western governments built a new international legal order, a central pillar of which was the prevention of any future genocide. Since the early stages of Israel's onslaught in Gaza, experts on genocide have been sounding the alarm. In January, the International Court of Justice described a case accusing Israel of genocide as plausible. 2 months later, a report by the UN Special Rapporteur for the occupied Palestinian territories found that the threshold for genocide had been met.
We cannot avert our eyes. We must confront genocide. We must prevent it, and we must punish it.
The decision by the United States and its allies to continue supporting Israel diplomatically and militarily makes them complicit.
And may God bless the great alliance between Israel and America forever.
And that has put those news outlets and their journalism to the test, caught between the positions of their own governments and the realities of international law.
This mantra that Israel has a right to defend itself, which has been repeated over and over and over.
Dead people, internationally accredited institutions calling it genocide, millions of hours at this point worth of footage. But no, we have to contextualize it because Hamas. You know what that means? We have to contextualize it that the Arabs are fucking barbaric and they overdid it on October 7th, and now they all need to be punished because they're filthy fucking animals that only understand the stick. That's the fucking contextualization. That's the from their perspective, of course. That's the fucking contextualization. Because that is inherent to their worldview. That allows them to sleep at night, ironically. That or just cold hard fucking cash, bro. And very often it's not even like cold hard cash. It's not even gangsta shit like getting an envelope or getting a bag full of money. At least when it comes to journalists. When it comes to politicians, it very much so is. No, when it comes to journalists, it's like maybe in 3 years I get to interview Joe Biden. Maybe they'll invite me to the Democratic Convention. Maybe they'll, call me on Obama's 72nd daughter's wedding, They want to be part of the establishment. Journalists, they go into this not because they want to report on truth, which I still believe is the minority, are in it because they just want to social ladder climb, but they have no other skill through which to do so. So they will sit and they will be keyboard mercenaries for whatever status ass motherfucking quo State Department direction they whip him like good little horsies. Woohoo! Towards. And they will say, "No, can I get a carrot? No."
Over again in Western media.
Israel has a right to defend itself.
Orientalism, exactly, my friend. And Israel cannot be Orientalized because it's been pitched to the Western audience and the Western journalist and the Western politician as an envoy of beautiful Western civilization in the insane and smelly Orient. Or some shit.
Israel has an absolute right to defend itself.
Israel has a right not only to defend itself, but to seek
I'm a terrible horse.
the military
I
destruction.
can't do a horse. Moo. How do you even do a horse? Moo. Wait, how do you do? Moo. Wait, let me see. No, fuck off. I want that video for later. Go. What the? Jesus, my MacBook. Like, the fuck are you doing? Horse sound. Can't do that. Moo. Moo. Of. Brother, can I have some of your oats, brother?
Of Hamas.
Yes, Israel had a right on October 7th to repel attacks on its territory, but it has no right under international law to make war on the Gaza Strip, a territory that, according to the law, it has occupied for 57 years. So that little rhetorical device of claiming that Israel has a right to defend itself has been used and abused in Western media to provide justifications for wholly unlawful acts.
Israel has a right to defend itself. That was the editorial line that was drilled into us, into all of our coverage. It was really an integral part of the editorial stance.
And that's when it stops being unbiased. Again, end of conversation. How many end of conversations do we have while watching this documentary? Like fucking 7, 8?
Yes, talking about, Israeli airstrikes killing Palestinians in Gaza. That would be the response from our presenters.
Denying access to food is collective punishment, and that we should all be clear in saying that.
Israel will argue, obviously, that it has a right to defend itself.
What? You fucking cow? What? Moo!
People were terrified of using the word genocide in coverage. They still are. You will very rarely see it in any BBC coverage. And if an interviewee says the word genocide,
this is a genocide happening in front of our eyes.
That word is, as you know, incredibly emotive, and the Israelis, as you know, will be saying that they are targeting Hamas only.
the presenter will almost always panic.
The Labour Party, of all political parties, which has always had a strong peace contingent within it, is now actually supporting genocide.
Okay, if we can maybe just avoid that language, if that's okay.
He's literally scared for his job. Papa Israel is gonna come and take my job if he said the genocide. Please don't say the G word. Oh fuck. The G word is the worst one, of course, but one that is much better but still pretty bad is the A word. Well, the A word is coming for you in exactly 25 seconds. Avoid the A word like the plague, for the A word is the corporate plague. Subscribe to Yugopnik Twitch and rid yourself of the constant diarrhea of the A word that is going to play in 10 seconds. The choice is yours. Get verbal diarrhea or get verbal beauty by yours truly. Only at the cost of $6 a month or for free through Prime, baby. No, not algebra. No, it's algebra. It's algebra. It's a Hamas derivative. Okay.
Having destroyed Gaza's healthcare system, Israel has laid waste to virtually every town and city there. It has slain more journalists in 1 year than were killed in all of World War II. They are among at least 41,000 Palestinians killed. And experts say the real death toll could be several times higher, in excess of 150,000. The response from Israel's primary Western allies has been one of denial about the depth of the horror and their own complicity. As for the Western world's most influential news outlets, they have suppressed the story, amplified the Israeli propaganda that has accompanied it, and downplayed the telltale signs of genocide.
Western mainstream media have invested a lot in trying to draw a curtain across this genocide and disseminating an alternative narrative that makes the crimes happening in Gaza somehow justifiable. And the reason this is so dangerous is because it creates room for Western countries to create a cloak of impunity, and it creates a sense that some countries are above the law, that might makes right, that all of the efforts to build an international order since the Second World War governed by the rule of law may begin to crumble.
It is impossible to overstate the role that the incendiary media coverage played in the events that would unfold.
Could not agree more.
After Hamas and its allies.
They're all complicit.
Broke down the fence that surrounds Gaza.
You're not Hamas. Israel is a democracy, and as a Jewish state,
2023 was the deadliest year for Palestinian children in history before October 7th.
supports and believes in every life mattering.
Israel was able to perform in front of the world a master class in manipulation of the media. And so you had a narrative set that Netanyahu and Biden on their own would not have had the power to drill into the mind.
I would even argue that they've helped. I would argue as well. I thought complicit means that. No, absolutely. Every single person that is downplayed, every single so-called journalist that has downplayed what is happening in Gaza, every single journalist that has given ideological and rhetorical ammunition to Israel or the American State Department, has participated in this. I truly believe so. You are the Goebbelses. Okay? You simply are. He might not have pulled a lot of, put a lot of bullets directly in people's heads, but indirectly, he's done more than any of the most unhinged fucking SS officers in Germany at the time. The pen's much more dangerous than a fucking gun. And you guys pretty fucking willingly pretty fucking willingly used it as a gun. And for what? Some convention invitations. A fucking salary. Enjoy looking yourself in the mirror.
Minds of the public, but for the existence of major Western news organizations promoting it for free.
In the future, when we have a museum for this genocide, we will have a special place where we put the pictures of the journalists who allowed it to happen. There will be a wing for the CNN and the BBC and the Times journalists who were the enablers of the genocide. The Palestinian people will remember them.
CNN denies that senior management demand that the journalists tone down criticism of Israel. Incorrect. They are lying. I spit on their fucking grave. This is an immensely complex and emotive story to cover, but we have been and remain completely committed to telling it accurately. No, you're not. I spit on your fucking grave. We fundamentally reject any notion of bias in our coverage. You're fucking cucks. You're fucking idiots. You're fucking incompetent. You're fucking propagandists, and nobody should take you fucking serious ever again. Cuck News Network. Our morning editorial calls are a place for discussion and debate as we frame the stories of the day. It is completely reasonable that the roles of both Hamas and the Israeli military will be discussed and contextualized in any discussion about the war in Gaza. Okay, then what is your comment on the statistical evidence that shows that your reporting has been talking about the Israeli deaths as, you know, the world is fucking ending, and classifying Palestinian deaths as if they were fucking accidental, oh my god, he fell down a flight of fucking stairs. There is statistical evidence showing a complete bias in your reporting of Palestinian deaths versus Israeli deaths, as it was covered by this documentary and as it was covered by The Intercept. Cock News Network. The BBC holds itself to high standards of impartial reporting and rejects any suggestion that reporting is not independent. We report without fear or favor. The BBC has the right to defend itself. We reject the suggestion we treat guests differently. Looking across the breadth of interviews across all BBC News platforms and programs, we do not think there is a difference in how we interview people. The only journalist you should not trust is the one that tells you that he carries no bias. Never trust anybody, period, that says they do not have any bias. Because you're not really human if you do not. As we said in a joke earlier, like what? Let's talk to cancer about their perspective on why they should actually kill you. Our coverage of the Israel-Hamas war has unrelentingly displayed fearless impartiality, thoughtful news. You're not supposed to be impartial over a genocide. Fucking cock. Oh, God. Thorough nuance and rigorous devotion to the facts, taking care to ensure our language choices are sensitive yet objective and clear to our readers. I mean, The Guardian was not that bad, but yeah. This is one of the most culturally and politically divisive global events in recent history. No, it's not. No, it's genuinely, it's really not. It's really not. You just live in your ivory towers of high-paid professional journalism. This really is not. Okay? It really isn't. It genuinely isn't divisive at all. Everybody, this is genocide, very bad. Israel is unhinged and fucked up. political elites, billionaires, and billionaire-owned media conglomerates. Oh, we disagree. It's more complicated, okay? That is the division. It's not fucking divided, okay? Everybody agrees that what is happening is fucking disgusting. It needs to end. And that Israel's system, domestic system of apartheid, is also disgusting. There's no division there, okay? Like other independent news organizations are facing near daily attempts for partisan voices and advocacy groups seeking to discredit or influence our coverage, hoping that we might adjust our reporting to whatever put a butt in the rest of their perspectives. We remain open to good faith disagreement, but will not be swayed from independent journalism. Okay. So you are admitting that Israel is actively trying to impart bias on media coverage. So you are admitting. Okay, thank you very much for at least saying that part. Very quietly, but at least saying it. Thank you, Gabriel, for 100 bits. The BBC is led by a guy who's a friend of former UK PM Bog Job. Friend who helped Bog Job get a mortgage. I love Bog Job, man. Bog Job is a shit. Incredibly well-made documentary. Good job, Al Jazeera English. Incredibly well-made documentary. Inside, Western media is reporting on Gaza. The Listening Post. You have it pinned in the top comment. Obviously, this is a large corporation, so you going and giving a like isn't going to do much. But why am I not subscribed? What the fuck? I'm sure I was subscribed. But yeah, you can share with your friends. This is a very, very, very decent video to share with your friends. This is a very decent video. When your friends talk to you about taking whatever they read on CNN or BBC at face value, send them this. It's very well researched. It's very well done. And there's a white guy that's the host, so they're more likely to listen to it. Gabriel, listen, everyone here has enough knowledge and follows enough indie reporters to be, like myself. Well, thank you very much, sir. I'm kidding. I'm not a fucking journalist. Do not offend me. Reporters, I'm a proud Twitch streamer, baby, and podcaster, and professional gamer, and great sex haver, and fast car driver, and greasy food eater, and functioning alcoholic, and yeah, but I'm not a journalist. Listen, everyone here has enough knowledge and follows enough indie reporters to be able to pick through mainstream media and know what's biased and what's not and how. I hope so. 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 Okay, moving on. This came out literally like today/yesterday. I didn't even notice it. So let's check out the man who has been speaking up forever. Jesus Christ, it's 3 hours. Holy fucking shit. Holy fucking shit. It's not even cut up into topics. Oh, no, it is. But introduction, is the Palestinian question dead? How the Nakba created Gaza. Okay, let's start with, is the Palestine question dead? Okay.
Ben, let me ask about one other thing that you said already, which was that around October 7th, you thought that the Palestine question was dead.
Mm-hmm.
Are you referring to the fact that people weren't interested in reading about it, they didn't care, or that around October 7th, you thought that nothing was going to happen in Gaza, that the situation was lost?
I think it was both, but the first was a consequence of the second. Namely, if you recall, people's memories are probably a little bit vague now. By October 6th, the only item on the international agenda regarding the Middle East was what was called the Abraham Accords, and the expectation that...
Am I rude if I put my bro at 1.25? Am I rude? Am I rude? Sorry, bro. You old, bro.
Saudi Arabia was next in the queue to join in, and then there would be a pact among the Arab powers, a pact to fend off the threat posed by what was called back then the Axis of Resistance, which basically meant Iran, Hezbollah, Syria, and the Houthis. And Palestine was off the agenda. It looked like it was over. This pact would be signed above the heads.
And I love Norm so much. At 1.5, he sounds like normal, you know? So if I wanted to actually 1.25 him, I would have to do 2.
Of the people of Gaza. They were going to be left in Gaza concentration camp. They were going to be left there to just languish and die. That's what they were fated for on October 6th. And it looked like it was going to work until the leadership of Hamas, and we don't quite know who made the decision. We don't even know if it came as a surprise to their external political leadership, whether it was a decision just made by Mr. Sinwar and his closest.
This is an interesting argument. This is a very interesting argument. Basically, it posits that October 7th reignited the conversation about Palestine, that the question had almost completely been forgotten, and that the state of the Palestinian cause would have been left in the dustbin of history, pretty much. So that they do what in political science they call a slow genocide, you know, just step by step. It's an interesting point to bring forward, almost as interesting as the following point. You see how awkward that pause was? Well, not as awkward as being pitched products that you do not need. The way they will pitch them to you in exactly 1 minute and 30 seconds. Avoid awkwardness and instead look at this beautiful half face for $6 a month or for free through Prime. The choice is yours. The ad plays in 1 minute and 30 seconds. You don't want to be awkward. It is very bad.
His inner circle, they opted for a throw of the dice. They just want.
Thank you, Comrade Crip! Very much for the 4 months. Ain't nobody watching ads up in this motherfucking bitch. Let's fucking go.
Wanted to shatter the status quo.
And remember to cute.
They hadn't.
Oh, I forgot to cute today. Remember to cute today. Always cute. And thank you, Great Snake, for your first 5 gift subs, you fucking legend. Thank you very kindly. Welcome to the community. Everybody say thank you for the gift, because ain't nobody watching motherfucking ads in here. We're all cuters in this bitch, okay? Thank you very much. Ala D as well for the 2 months. Welcome to the community, baby. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Remember, mewing is dead, cuting is in. Be like Radoslav. What's his name? Radoslav. And thank you, Jeb, for the 20 bits.
A clue what might come of it.
Chew, motherfucking chew.
Next.
Thank you, Great Snake.
We just wanted to
Are you eating your own ass, Snake?
Shatter, not just shake. Shatter the status quo.
And thank you, Orbital Pyramid. Orbital Pyramid. Reject commercials. Embrace knowledge. And thank you, Hella D, for your first 5 gift subs. Thank you, Oilers. I love you very much, Ga. Very much, Ga. You're close to actually starting the Oiler Wars here.
A new child soldier.
Very, very close.
You can say.
Thank you very much, by the way. Hella D, thank you, and Orbital Pyramid as always.
Retrospect.
Dragan. His name is Dragan, jebote. Dragan. Wait, I found like additional lore. Wait, TikTok. I found an additional guy doing improv.
I never thought I'd have an intellectual conversation about the.
This is my private account, whatever. Do I have favorites? Oh, yeah, this guy does him pretty well.
Jebaću te na do usta što mi vrataš.
This is how you cute.
Ti sela dvorište jebaću.
He doesn't do it that well.
Sad me teo đavo ubije. Demon, udari me nešto slepočnice me bole. Jo, majko.
He doesn't like. You need to duck face it a bit more to cute properly. You need to you need to pull out your lips. I don't know why he sucks them in. It makes no sense. You see, look at how Dragan does it. Okay, Dragan does it more No, he does it more properly. It's okay.
Neku ženu ću da bijem ovde. Sad mi jedna pogledala popreko, bijem li u semi i plemedu i steram đavola kad ja budem.
No, wait.
Ja ću dumnem jebem ti Red Bull. Po njih sam...
Which one was it?
Ovo
okay?
ljudi nema nigde.
Like when you cute?
Čovjek na svijetu sam od meda. Samo ovaj nos mi je mala. Koja usta, brajko, koja usta. Blago ne koja se bude udala za mene života mi.
You see, like he sucks them in, but also pops them out. Okay, so it's more complicated than the duck face of the old millennials. You gotta push back your cheeks and pull out your lips. I can't show you because I'm wearing a mask, but always cute, always cute. Cuting is the new mewing. Jesus Christ. Okay, back to serious topics.
I wouldn't call it an error because I don't think they had any particular expectation.
When I said that today's stream is going to be serious, I apologize. You will never experience this on YugopnikTwitch. That is just not how we roll up in this bitch, okay?
Of what would come of it. I have spent the past year, apart from Gaza, trying to look at rough analogies. And for me, the most telling analogy is the Nat Turner rebellion. Nat Turner was a slave, happened to have been a very smart guy. Everybody agrees on that. White, black, there was consensus. Nat, as they called him, was a very smart guy. He was a religious fanatic, totally steeped in the Bible, steeped in the Old Testament. In fact, a book just now came out on Nat Turner, literally about a month ago. And they just talk about how deeply he was steeped in the Old Testament. And that was the idiom, the language in which he translated his situation. It was...
I would pay $100,000 to see Norman Finkelstein cute. I would give everything to see Norman Finkelstein cute, okay?
Pharaoh. It was Exodus. It was killing all the Canaanites. But he had no grand strategy. He was a very smart guy, for sure, but he didn't have the mental range. That can only come from training, from study. He just wanted, like the folks in Gaza.
Confirm Norman Finkelstein does not believe in inborn IQ, but that mental ranges are established through learning, studying, personal experiences. Continues to be the basis of the base man's.
He wanted to shatter the status quo. He had some expectations he might cause a massive...
Oh, but no, Finkelstein. We love the rebel. We love the liberator. We love those who stand up for themselves. Except if they do it against our allies, then they're unhinged, evil terrorist, religious extremist dogs that need to be put down together with their entire families. If it's happening on TV and in a show, I am so in. If it's actually happening in real life, I'm like, what the fuck? This is insane. I don't want this to happen. Actually, I was LARPing the entire time. Hunger Games. Please do revolutions in Hunger Games. Don't do them IRL, please. Please, it's very scary. I am scared.
Uprising that he would get a response from other slaves didn't work out. It didn't work out. But I think it was, when I read about the Nat Turner Rebellion, I read quite a lot this past year, it was striking to me how close the analogy was. Basically, what happened in Gaza was a slave revolt. But like Nat Turner, it didn't have realistic prospects. If you remember when it happened.
It's a very good parallel, I think, Chad. What do you think? I think it's a very interesting parallel. It was like, fuck it, we're going to do something. Let's just do something. And then, the consequences are intense. And we'll see what the long-term effect of October 7th will be for the Palestinian people and Palestinian struggle. Just like how Nat Turner didn't know what it's going to be about, how it's going to result, what it's going to result in the long term when it comes to the, anti-slavery movement. It's a very interesting parallel.
The head of Hezbollah, he made a point in his public speeches at the time of saying, they didn't tell us. They did not tell us. Because Saeed Nasrallah, who did have the range, he had the mental range. He had the mental range, and he also had 32 years as the leader of Hezbollah, so he had lots of life experience. And in politics, life experience is irreplaceable. It's irreplaceable. That's, by the way, and this is a complete tangent, why the Bernie Sanders campaign took off. And Dr. Cornel West, who was a surrogate of Bernie during those campaign years, his did not take off. Dr. Cornel West, no one is second. He's not second to anyone in brilliance. Extremely smart guy. He's got breadth and depth. But the experience, and Nasrallah has the experience, and they weren't ready. They weren't ready. They tried to do basically one thing. And that was because he represented the pride in the Arab world, Mr. Nasrallah. He felt a moral, but also political, obligation to show support of the people who were suffering, who were on the receiving end of a genocide. He had to do something, or they would lose all credibility. But he knew they weren't ready for Armageddon. And so he kept it very calculated, calibrated, low level, hoping he could, as it were, carve out a path that would support Gaza, support the people of Gaza facing a genocide, but not bringing on the full force of an Israeli reaction. It didn't work, and I didn't think it would work. But I understood what he was trying to do. Sinwar, the head of Hamas, they hadn't.
I do wonder if they thought the Israeli reaction would be as intense as it is now. We will probably never have an answer to that, obviously, because half of the people in leadership have been assassinated, and almost everybody that has participated in the October 7th raid is also dead. But it's an interesting question to posit.
The clue, remember? Sinwar.
Because it would have to keep in mind, okay, how quote unquote success based on their terminology and their view of Israel, how successful it's going to be, how much damage can we do, etc., etc. It's complicated. I'm not sure they did.
He was in Israeli jail for 22
I don't think they had any illusions. It was just the last card that they had to play. Yeah.
years. He barely knew the outside world. And then from the jail, he went to Gaza. Gaza is a concentration camp. It's completely sealed off from the outside world. He hadn't a clue how the world worked. Nothing. It was just, as I said, a desperate throw of the dice. Because as of October 6th, the whole of Gaza, it seemed, was being left to languish and die, the whole population of Gaza.
Well, one thing that said, particularly about Nat Turner, that you said about Nat Turner that stuck out at me is you mentioned the Old Testament. And the Old Testament is close to what I wanted to ask you next, which is just how far back in time you think we need to go to understand what happened a year ago. The reason that I ask this is I want this to be a very comprehensive discussion, and I don't want people who aren't experts not to be able to follow us. So if people don't understand the history of Zionism or of the area, maybe we can help them in this conversation. So do you think that we need to go all the way back to the Old Testament?
No.
To the beginning of the 1900s? Where do we need to go?
I think we need to go to 1948, because that's when Gaza became Gaza.
Is this JT in 10 years, the interview, or what? Maybe. Actually, it's literally the same hair. Holy shit. What the fuck? JT, I found your brother. Literally the same hair, bro. He just doesn't have the goatee. Same incredible Angloid genes, bro. Like English royalty genes in these motherfuckers.
Conversation. So do you think that we need to go all the way back to the Old Testament?
No.
I think JT has some strange podcasts, like the reprogram, unprogram. I can't remember exactly.
The beginning of the 1900s, where do we need to go?
I think we need to go to 1948, because that's when Gaza became Gaza. In 1948, roughly 270,000 Palestinians who resided in the state of Israel, they were expelled and ended up in Gaza. And at that point, the population of Gaza became overwhelmingly, it comprised refugees. So the first fact to remember about Gaza is it's overwhelmingly a refugee population. It's those, about, I think the estimate is 80%, about 80%, let's call it 70 to 80% My mind is so exhausted, all the numbers I have to juggle in my mind, but I can't remember now if it's 70 or 80. About 70 to 80% are refugees and children of refugees and grandchildren of refugees. Under international law, they're all reckoned as refugees, the children, but usually we say the refugees and their descendants. So refugees and their descendants, about 80%.
I just bought some aces.
So
I'm fucking jealous. Fuck, Velos suck compared to aces. Can't find an ace again, man.
Thing to remember. The second thing to remember is, and this was actually new to me, I have a small circle of younger people, much younger than me, who are conscientious researchers, and they always bring new information to my attention, which I'm not aware of. One of the interesting facts I came across was already in 1955, it's after the explosion, this is Gaza, already in 1955, the main UN representative in that region, because there was the UN refugee organization that was presiding over the refugee question. I'm referring just to Gaza, but there was also a huge refugee problem because about 750,000 Palestinians in Gaza were, well, I'll give you the backdrop to what you just said.
This is on his mother, Piers Morgan, and Gaza is another Holocaust. That is the greatest subtitle of a video I've ever seen in my life. On his mother, Piers Morgan, and Gaza as a Holocaust. Jesus, wow. That's a sentence right there.
I was interviewed by Piers Morgan. And the first time I was on the program.
God, I would love to have 1/10 of Norman's knowledge on this. I don't believe you do, my love. It would weigh down on you so heavily. I don't want it. I know 0.1% of what Norman does, and it already sucks balls.
Asked me at some point, what would your parents think about what you're saying now? And I said, which was frankly true, I would never want to misrepresent the memory of my parents. That to me, even though I'm a resolute atheist, that to me would be sacrilege, to misrepresent their memory. I said I thought a lot about that. And I felt confident they would support what I was saying. And then I went home that night. And I called my brother Richard. And I asked him, I said, I want to be clear about representing.
It'll age you like crazy, yeah. Finkelstein is actually 26.
Mom and dad's memory. They didn't agree with me on some things, and I don't want to misrepresent them. And he said, "Oh, Mom, Shirley screaming out the window, they're all Nazis." So yeah. I felt it was something I needed to hear when my brother said that.
Mm-hmm. And I think now would be a very good time to get back to placing October 7th in some context. And this is where back to placing, and I think now would be a very good time
to do an ad pitch like the one that is going to play in exactly 2 minutes. Don't watch ads. Subscribe to Yugopnik. It is much better. I did this very streamlined with the content that we're watching. Very good. Ad plays in 2 minutes.
To get back to placing October 7th in some context, and this is where the didactic element of the conversation comes in. I think that Hamas is caricatured a lot when it is described. They are described as, for instance, this very old anti-Semitic charter of theirs is what's referred to. They're often described as ruling with a kind of very, very violent tyranny, and all of the people hate them. I have no idea if all of this is true, but what I wanted to ask you is just what is, I know we've been talking about Hamas, but just what is Hamas? When did it come? When did they come?
10 out of 10s, a lot. 10 out of 10s. I better see some subs coming in for all those 10s out of 10s, baby. Yeah.
Power, did Israel ever support Hamas? How did Hamas coming to power in Gaza lead to, or in some ways contribute to, October 7th?
Well, first of all, I'm not an expert on Hamas. I understand you'll be interviewing at some point Rashid Khalidi, and he's definitely the better person to ask a question like that. I have never concerned myself with internal Palestinian politics. First of all, because I don't know the language. I don't know Arabic. Second of all, I've not spent a significant time there. I've been there.
This is one of the greatest signifiers of wisdom you can find for younger chatters here, okay? Wisdom isn't knowing everything about everything.
Business.
Wisdom is knowing when you don't know enough about something. Wisdom is when you know you don't know enough about something. And having the lack of ego to just say it. Just say it. I'm not informed on this topic. I don't know. I'll defer to you guys in a conversation. How often do you hear that nowadays? No, I gotta know everything about everything. I gotta know about how the vaccine works. I gotta know about how the Middle East is currently. I gotta know about the political systems and about fascism and socialism and about CPUs and about car carburetors, especially about car carburetors. All the dudes know everything about the car carburetors. No, you can be like, man, I really don't know anything about that. And that is okay. Thank you very much, Jab Tush, for the gift sub. Thank you very kindly, my friend.
I was in the West Bank every summer for a few weeks between 1988 and 1995, but I still wouldn't make any claims to a solid, if you want to call it, anthropological knowledge of the West Bank. I went occasionally to Gaza, just a few times. So I don't want to make any claims. I'll just speak to some basic facts. Number one, it was elected into office in January 2006. It was elected because it was running on a reform platform. The Palestinian Authority, exactly as you would expect, that's the institution that was established as a result of the Oslo Accord in September 1993, and then what's called Oslo II, September 1995, they created this Palestinian Authority. And as you can imagine, it was hopelessly corrupt, as it was intended to be. And it was enormously repressive because the two went hand in hand. Namely, we give you money if you repress the Palestinians. And that was very clear. I mean, that was the purpose of the Oslo Accords, namely to establish an indigenous repressive apparatus because Israel didn't want to do the dirty work. Yitzhak Rabin said he was the defense minister during the first Intifada, but then he was the one who presided over the Oslo Accords in 1993 when he was prime minister.
Yeah.
And he said, if we keep doing this, people are going to keep going to the human rights organizations and they're going to complain to Amnesty and they're going to complain to the Israeli High Court that we're carrying on in all these brutal, illegal ways using torture and so forth. And he said the answer is very simple. We'll get the Palestinians to do the dirty work. And that way we won't any longer be ostracized for the occupation. So they recruited the Palestinians. The Palestinian Authority was hopelessly corrupt and brutal. And so it's a funny, I mean, nothing is funny about the situation, obviously. But it's a paradox because that was 2006. President Bush is in power. And one of his signature themes was what was called democracy promotion. You know, it's the aftermath of the Gulf War. We're going to promote democracy in the Arab world.
Same like how combating terrorism and the barbaric world is now the new terminology.
They ordered the Palestinians to hold elections. Hamas didn't want to participate because Hamas believed that these elections were just part of the Oslo process, which was designed to create a domestic authority to repress the Palestinians. So they didn't want to participate. And then they were urged, exhorted, participate. They participated, and to their shock, they won. They won the parliamentary election. They came into power immediately. Hillary Clinton, she said, the wrong side won. She said, we should have made sure that the Palestinian Authority won. We made a mistake. That's her notion of democracy. In any event, the moment they come into power, Israel imposes this brutal economic blockade on Gaza. The blockade is then seconded by the United States, the EU, and the screws. They're turning the screws. They're turning the screws. And the reason was obvious. They said so. They said they wanted to make conditions in Gaza so terrible that the people would overthrow the regime, get rid of Hamas, which is, standard U.S., that's what you call standard operating procedure. If you remember, but you don't because you're way too young, or when the Allende regime came to power in Chile. The United States started to impose the brutal economic sanctions on Chile. Allende was a socialist, very decent human being. Another one person who died at his post. He didn't have to. The famous scene, for viewers, if you're interested, to his death, he's on Moncada Palace holding a machine gun. He was a total bourgeois in his tastes, but he was absolutely sincere and committed. Salvador Allende. What did Kissinger say? It was a famous statement. He said, we are going to, you can Google this too, Kissinger scream. He said, we're going to keep turning the screws on Chile until the economy screams. And that's what Israel, the US, did in Gaza. They said, you can read the memos, they were going to put Gaza on a humanitarian minimum diet. And that meant literally they counted calories. Literally, they counted calories. What is the number of calories per capita that we're going to admit into Gaza to keep it on the humanitarian minimum, which is
the precursor to sanctions as a political tool to make sure that while you are introducing so-called democratic and electoral systems to particular republics that you deem strategically important to yourself, through potential sanctioning, and you do not even need to use the stick. The sanction is the stick. You can go with the Western German or South Korean approach with the apple. And what is the apple? It's we will push money, we will push investment towards your government if you are aligned with our military and economic interests. That will make you seem as a adequate professional politician domestically because everything is booming and growing, and we will have our interests met as well. That is the apple. The stick is sanctions. Yeah. And then there's a baseball bat, which is what? Invasion.
It's just the euphemistic way of saying a starvation plus diet. And they said, we want to keep the Gaza economy on the precipice.
In a unipolar world, you cannot have true independence. You cannot. You just cannot. The idea of sovereignty is an absolute meme when the majority of the world's economy is directed by one state actor. It's just not how it works.
Not total collapse, because then we'll get blamed for the humanitarian catastrophe. Just at the edge of the precipice, a starvation plus diet. And I remember I was in Gaza, I can't remember which year now, but I remember talking to the proverbial cab driver. He said, and he had voted for Hamas, he said, the world wasn't ready for it. And so he regretted the vote. So when you say the people turned against Hamas,
which China expertly finessed. Yes. And some Gulf states as well. They're completely different approaches to finessing it, but still.
Yes, there was a lot of alienation. But the fact of the matter is they were never given a chance. They had sent out many feelers, diplomatic feelers, saying they were ready for the two-state settlement, the international consensus for resolving the conflict. There's a long record. It's not yet been fully compiled, but part of that group I talked about that I work with, young people, they're assembling all the pieces of how many times Hamas offered to end the conflict on the basis of the two-state settlement. But the Israelis, the Americans didn't want that. Just like with Nasrallah, with Hezbollah. Hezbollah kept saying, almost to the point of a plea. Almost.
And it doesn't even have to be a economically developing nation. Like you look at Western Europe, UK, France, European Union in general, with Germany being a prime example, without U.S. approval or American say so when it comes to their positioning in the international order, they don't get to do anything, pretty much.
So very unusual for Nasrallah.
Maybe not as much as they had to back in the Cold War, but still.
Plea. He was saying we will stop the firing in northern Israel, just implement the ceasefire in Gaza. There was no reason to go after Hezbollah or Lebanon or Iran. Just implement the ceasefire. He said, everyone says, oh, he couldn't stop. Israel had to react. No, Israel didn't have to react. You could have just ended the ceasefire. Implemented a ceasefire. But no, you can't do that. You know why? Because nobody has the right to tell Israel it can't commit genocide. That's considered an outrage. Israel has that right to commit genocide. And the fact that Hezbollah was telling them no, or even the International Court of Justice was saying Israel's committing a plausible genocide and it has to stop. Well, that's the International Court of Justice is the legal arm of the United Nations. So what does Netanyahu do? He goes to the UN and says this organization is filled with anti-Semitic bile to tell Israel it has to stop the genocide. But there was an option, just like there was an option with Hamas. They said, we're willing to settle. When that option was
the beautiful moment when 99% of our attitudes here in chat are completely in line with our boy Norman Finkelstein. Basically, chat, I'm calling you as smart as Norman, okay? You're as smart as Norman. All of you. 100% as smart as Norman.
rebuffed, ignored, not even mentioned. What happened next? Hamas tried something else. It was nonviolent civil resistance. And I have to say, at the time, we're now talking about March 2018, what was called the Great March of Return. And I encouraged it. In my book on Gaza, I thought the strategy would work. There's nonviolent civil resistance. And I was in touch with now, one of the senior members of Hamas, just corresponding and talking about.
Confirmed Hamas. Finkelstein confirmed Hamas. Jewish super soldier of Hamas confirmed. Launch the strikes.
What I think needs to be done. Not that, I'm Jewish, I'm from Brooklyn, I don't have a big name, but so they're not going to attach great weight to anything I say. But I had invested my credibility in the idea that I think it could work. I was totally wrong. What did Israel do? We know exactly what it did. There was a UN report, very exhaustive, on the Great March of Return. It runs to 250 pages, single space.
If we were at your home, I'm sure you would bring out the report and we'd start going through the footnotes.
That's correct. And what did they find? They said for the first months from March until May 14th, when Israel committed a huge massacre in Gaza during the Great March of Return, it said it was overwhelmingly nonviolent. In fact, it was overwhelmingly nonviolent until October, from March till October. What did Israel do? We know from the report. Targeted children, that's a fact. Targeted medics, that's a fact. Targeted journalists, that's a fact. And it targeted disabled people, yes. It targeted double amputees. It wasn't the fog of war. The report documents the people killed were between 100 and 300 meters from the fence separating Gaza from Israel. Israel's top snipers were lined up along the border, and they were picking off, like fish in a barrel, children, medics, journalists, and disabled people. They described a person's on crutches or in a wheelchair standing by a tree 300 meters away. I know people find it hard to believe, and I'll tell you the truth.
No, we do not, my friend.
Even I can't fathom it. There were many doctors during the current Israeli genocide in Gaza, Western doctors.
But pro-Zionists only care about feelings and not facts. Oh, I did a Ben Shabibo. I did the hot sister haver. Cute.
Who went to work there, who volunteered. And if you read their reports, they state that children were coming into the hospitals with no shrapnel. So it was like a bomb with just bullet shots to the skull. They were targeting the skulls of children. I have a very dear friend, comrade, colleague, part of that group. The one who I know longest is a fellow named Jamie Stern-Weiner, who already has carved out his own niche. And I recently did an interview with Glenn Greenwald.
I saw some of this.
And I asked for his critical feedback. I need a reality check. Usually that would be Professor Chomsky who did that for me, but he's not among us, so I asked Jamie. And Jamie went through his criticisms, and then he said, of course, I don't like it.
What the fuck? Did Noam die? Was Noam not among us? Was Noam not among us? Is Noam Susi? Is Noam Susi Baka not among us? Okay, I need to stop fucking shit posting. I'm sorry.
They're called the Satanic State. And I said to him, Jamie, I've been reading these human rights reports for 40 years. And I admit I might be too close. Because I'm not seeing the wider world, what goes on elsewhere. But targeting the skulls of kids, targeting double amputees, that just, it goes into a region which A, I can't comprehend, and B, I don't want to comprehend. I just don't want to enter into that diseased, pathological mental universe. there was
But why do people still refuse to believe these cold facts? Because they've been brainwashed into identifying with the Zionist regime for a while now. And what was the tool most used to help them identify with the Zionist regime?
Let's talk about
in the past 5 to 6 decades. Well, my friends, it starts with pop and it ends with culture.
News.
Leading us to the next video. How Israel weaponizes pop culture. Let us learn more about that and how it eventually led to the past 365 days being something that so many millions, specifically Western men and women, were ready to simply watch on their phones and their TV sets without feeling sick to their stomachs.
As Elizabeth Taylor and her sixth husband of 7 marriages were having such a good time in Israel that they extended the visit until Saturday, did some sightseeing, and met with Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin.
In Israel, we have sent our cameras to the home of this marvelous woman. Ladies and gentlemen, the former Prime Minister of the State of Israel, Golda Meir.
I had a cocktail party.
A Kabbalah cocktail party?
Kabbalah.
Kabbalah, sorry.
Yeah, well, Kabbalah if you're Israeli, I guess.
Kamala! Kamala! Kamala!
How did you become
Kamala! Kamala!
involved in this?
A girlfriend of mine, she kept telling me about this really charismatic rabbi named Eitan who told these great stories, and and I said, Susan, I'm not even Jewish. Why are you telling me these things?
And I guess from a Palestinian perspective, say, why are we shown as the rape? If you ask the UN, they have ample evidence of Palestinians and Lebanese being raped, sodomized by Israeli jailers. Why the Palestinians?
Oh my God, you guys are so young. That was Madonna. That was Madonna. That was Madonna. That wasn't Lady Gaga. Guys, are you fucking insane? This is Madonna.
No,
this is not Lady Gaga. Do you even know who Madonna is? Oh my God, Gabriel is probably losing his shit right now. Gabriel, are you losing your shit? This is Madonna. That was Madonna.
Susan, I'm
they
not
probably
even
had
Jewish.
Gaga too. Yeah, okay. No, I thought you were. Yeah, Gaga here. Okay, sorry for immediately jumping to conclusions and making fun of my beautiful alphas and zenas. She's that old lady that fucks 20-year-olds. Oh my God, chat. Calm the fuck down. I love you. Oh God.
Jailers. Why the Palestinian was presented as the rape? Is it more palatable to see a Palestinian raping than an Israeli?
Hardcore jihadis right here in Germany. They're a threat to both countries.
Hi, I'm Natalie Portman, and I'm going to take you through some Hebrew slang. This is a great one. This means you're living in a movie.
Afa alaich, or afa alecha, which means in English, flying on you. And basically, when you say afa alaich, it means that I love you so much. Ani afa alaich, so ani afa alechem.
Puši kurac. Teraj se u pičku materinu. Go to a mother's pussy. Serbo-Croatian. There you go. You learned something in Serbo-Croatian to tell Zionist. Teraj se u pičku materinu. Say it with me, chat. Okay. Teraj se u pičku materinu. Teraj se u pičku materinu. Okay, repeat. Teraj se like take yourself. U pičku materinu. Go to a mother's pussy. It's difficult to translate. It's not actually a mother's pussy, but mrš u pičku materinu. Teraj se u pičku materinu. Some prefer mrš u pičku materinu, other ones like teraj se u pičku materinu. Very good, very good, very good, very good. You write Pičku in a very Polish way, but not bad. Jeboti pas mater, that is not bad. Yeah, but I'm not translating this. Da se iseremo nacionističko groblje.
From the second Israel was created, Israeli government officials and those sympathetic with the new state immediately set about looking for ways to depict the new state, Israel, in a way that would resonate with Western audiences.
An epic of our time, The Birth of a Nation, with Paul Newman as Ari Ben Canaan, Eva Marie Saint as Kitty Fremont.
And they had those epics of, oh my God, don't pause on that, don't pause on that, okay? They had those epics of their time, like we have epics of our time, like Twitch streamers in particular. But just like back then, they had to somehow monetize it. Usually it was through tickets for cinemas. But nowadays, thanks to Mark Zuckerberg in particular and Facebook, everything needs to have ads. So even my great overlord Jeff Bezos was like, I gotta do ads as well. He didn't want to. Mark Zuckerberg pretty much made him. That is why I call on every Twitch patriot to subscribe to my channel right now, my channel specifically, and avoid the ad that is going to play in 1 minute and 30 seconds. Be a Twitch patriot. Do not watch ads. Thank you very much.
Under attack from its neighboring savages.
Time magazine says, a terrific show.
You heard what I said! Fight! Not beg! Fight!
And what better tool to project that image other than Hollywood, the entertainment capital of the world? Because when you watch entertainment, you're not on high alert. You're relaxed, you're enjoying. So you don't realize you're being spoon-fed propaganda the way you would when you're watching the news. And this usage of Hollywood to hide the propaganda behind fairy tales about Israel started in 1948, when Israel was created. The creation of Israel was celebrated by 24,000 people gathered at the Hollywood Bowl to salute the new state of Israel. They listened to a recorded message from the then Prime Minister David Ben-Gurion, as a huge flag emblazoned with the Star of David shone down on them. And over the course of the next 76 years, until today, a staggering number of Hollywood stars support Israel. And if you analyze the way Hollywood builds Israel up, it's always dependent on putting Palestine down.
What about the civilian casualty rate?
Then don't put your goddamn things in private homes. And then we say get out. Of course, we're going to do it.
The response normally is where are the civilians supposed to go?
I don't care. They started it. You're all insane.
It's like the only way
Grandma, take your medication. Come with me. Come with me. Yeah. Grandma, stop talking about killing Palestinians. Grandma, stop talking about killing Palestinians. Take your medication. Grandma, why do you wonder? Grandma, this is why I put you in a fucking institution. Jesus fucking Christ, Grandma.
You can praise Israel by demonizing Palestinians. Like, it doesn't exist without having an enemy.
Selena Gomez tweeted a pro-Gaza.
Oh, let's see if she can spell Palestinian.
And that messaging is...
Oh, yeah, fucking hell, man. Makes my job too easy, dude. These Zionists really sometimes make my job too fucking easy.
The most effective when it's done subliminally. In movies and TV shows that are not related to war. In comedies, in lighthearted stuff. Because again, propaganda works best when you don't suspect that you're being propagandized into doing something or believing something. Take for example those satire mockumentary movies by Sacha Baron Cohen, who by the way is a hardcore Zionist, with strong ties to Israel's national security state. Let's take a look at his movie Bruno.
There was still one shithole left to fix. My plan was to get both sides to sign a peace deal.
Bruno was supposed to be about exploring the world of homophobia. And of course, naturally, Sasha wanted to explore homophobia in the radical Islamic Middle East. Because when you're trying to liberate, that's what they're trying to do.
Hi, I love your hat. It's right.
So naturally, when Sasha was casting characters for his film Bruno, he consulted with his casting director, the CIA. I shit you not. He said this on Letterman.
You know, when we were making this film, we wanted it to be better than Borat, and we thought, what could people see that they'd never seen before on film? And we thought one thing would be a comedian interviewing a terrorist. So we showed the script, you know, the outline of the script to the studio, and they said, oh, this is great, who's going to play the terrorist? And we said, no, we're going to find a real terrorist. Now, it's not that easy to find an actual terrorist. There's no Craigslist in Beirut, for example. So...
Jo, kad ćemo jedan meetup u Splitu, pozdrav za Split iz Čačka. Bre, da je ceo Balkan ovde se skupio, bre, da ste drugari i drugarce. Ej, drugari, drugarce. Kad god kažete, jako rado, jako drago, jako da.
We called up a contact we had at the CIA, and said...
Fuck Borat's second worst thing that happened to Kazakhstan. Emel Tachanka, our beautiful Kazakhstani friend. Yeah, dude, it's so fucked up, man. I made a whole video on Borat that I since unlisted. I think it was a decent video where I was taking the Borat experience in the US and how, like, in a very meta way, it's actually making fun of the American perspective towards foreigners and how so many Americans in that so-called film saw an insane caricature of what a non-American is and yet proceeded to believe that this is a normal human being. And my argument is that this show can only be made in the U.S. because, again, Americans, because of their innate sense of exceptionalism, tend to be the most, quote-unquote, bigoted towards every non-American. And by bigoted, I mean just think that they are completely unhinged. And I think that argument still stands for the Borat film. But afterwards, after learning more about Sacha, after learning more about Sacha, I realized that most likely the intention of the Borat movie was not that at all. So I was like, why should I even put your name in my mouth? You know, why should I even put my name in my mouth? The king of the castle. So yeah, he basically went and fucked up the view towards a whole fucking ethnicity in a whole fucking country. That's with Kazakhstan. And he also hyper exploited some of the poorest people in, I believe, in Romania, in a Roma village where he shot a show completely humiliating them without telling them that they're in on the joke. You know, I'm one of those, like, back in the day, it was called dirtbag leftists, you know. I'm more dirtbaggy. I'm open to some more, let's call it, harsh humor, etc., but even this broke every ethical boundary for me, so I didn't even want to have a fucking video about this stupid fucking show. Pozdrav iz Hrvatske, neka puši kurac. Pozdrav, brate.
Can you...
They're all punching down comedy, yeah. Even though it had, in my opinion, a relatively decent commentary on the insanity of, you know, the American worldview, blah, blah, blah. But that was, I realized, a completely unintentional aspect of the Borat film, if you get what I mean. A completely unintentional aspect of it.
Can you help us? We're looking to find a terrorist.
Bruno has a contact at the CIA.
Bruno doesn't, but I knew somebody who did.
All right. And the CIA then found him a Palestinian that they labeled as a terrorist to use as a character.
Nope, he doubled down on how he didn't need to, The mind that came up with the Shield of Pork a bit clearly had something going on, yeah.
His movie about homophobia.
Al-Qaeda Assault 2001.
What I find very interesting is this direct casual access of a filmmaker to the CIA. But can you imagine I call the CIA as a filmmaker terrorist?
Bruno doesn't, but
Bruno has a contact at the CIA.
Bruno doesn't, but I knew somebody who did.
All right. And the CIA then found him a Palestinian that they labeled as a terrorist to use as a character in his movie about homophobia.
Al-Qaeda Assault 2001.
What I find very interesting is this direct casual access of a filmmaker to the CIA. But can you imagine I call the CIA as a filmmaker wanting them to help me research something? What the fuck? As if the CIA exists to improve storytelling around the world. Yeah, that's why they're doing it. They're consulting with him on character development and pacing and story structure. The fact that you're working with the CIA for your movie... And later on, we're going to talk about how Hollywood promotes the war on behalf of the US security apparatus, the CIA, the Pentagon, and the NSA. But for now, let's get back to this racist, masquerading as a comedian.
Can I give you guys a word of advice? Lose the beards, because your King Osama looks like a kind of dirty wizard or a homeless Santa.
By the way, journalist Alan McLeod found out who the CIA agent that helped Sasha find the character, the Palestinian character for his film. And that CIA agent turned whistleblower, his name is John Kiriakou. John then said that eventually Sasha was actually interviewing a Palestinian NGO worker that they claimed is a terrorist.
Within a few hundred years.
No, that's a wabba weewa. That's a wabba weewa right there. Not king of the castle, not king
Wonderful.
of the castle.
A new child soldier, subscriber.
Thank you, RFG, for the sub with Prime. Thank you very much.
Yards of Israeli soldiers walks a Palestinian branded a major terrorist by the Bruno film.
We found somebody...
Wabba weewa, I make a mistake.
Who actually lived in a town that had a terrorist from a pretty nasty group called the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade.
Ayman Abu Aita not only lives openly, but frequently travels abroad. It took our producer, Samir Bazbaz, 2 phone calls and 10 minutes to find someone the film sets up as a man in hiding. Is your number in the phone book?
I thought I needed some security to get to the terrace. The guy picks this secret location.
This was the location, the Everest Hotel. Ayman Abu...
I'm in a hotel. I'm with the terrorist.
Aita is in the Fatah party. The film fails to identify him as a Christian when the character Bruno asks him about the Muslim Osama bin Laden.
And this poor guy lost his job because of the portrayal of him as a monster in the film.
Jesus
and later,
Christ.
by the way, he sued.
And the dude was a Christian. I'm sorry I'm laughing. This is awful for the guy, obviously. But holy shit.
For 9 figures, which they settled out of court with him. And you know when people settle out of court, that means they want... And it's an admittance of guilt. But the most fascinating and twisted part of that story is what didn't make the cut in the film. You know, Sacha Baron Cohen's mockumentary films is where he's playing a character, but none of the people that he's talking to know that it's a character. So it's filmed like a documentary, but he's acting, but everyone else thinks it's real. So in this movie, Bruno, he goes around being his most camp self and kind of like trying to trigger a homophobic reaction out of people. And they filmed in Jerusalem. And John, that ex-CIA agent, said that there was one scene they filmed in Jerusalem where Bruno was acting camp. Now, normally Israel is presented as a gay haven, right? But while filming, Sacha was chased down by a group of homophobic Israelis who wanted to lynch him. And according to the ex-CIA agent, this was the first time that Sacha broke character while filming. He was begging them, talking to them in Hebrew, saying, I'm playing a character, this is not me. And they still wouldn't let him go. They chased him down, he found a shop, and he hid in the toilet to avoid being beaten up by these guys. This is Israel, the gay haven. So if Sacha wanted to make a film that explores homophobia, wouldn't this footage be gold?
And he didn't put that in. He didn't put that in. Wawa-wee-woo. Not when the Israelis are doing to me. Wawa-wee-woo.
Documentary gold. You got the most homophobic reaction.
Oh, God.
But that wasn't included in the film because it doesn't fit the narrative that Hollywood tries to paint about Israel. Israel can never be the butt of the joke. It has to be Palestinians. Little background on Sacha. He went to an elite school in the UK, English guy, and idealized Shimon Peres. So when you zoom out and you look at his entire body of work, especially when you see what the writers of his movie Borat and Bruno have been saying about the genocide in Gaza, they're genocidal statements.
No one knows what it is to be a Palestinian.
Oh yeah, I remember this fucking cunt.
You can't do anything. You can't hijack planes. You can't do suicide bombs. You can't blow up children in cafes.
The theocratic Islamic Republic of Iran, run by insane Islamic fundamentalist lunatics, the Muslim racists and the hard left idiot racists.
These pro-Palestine extremist wankers are arrogant, disgusting.
And I just want to give a quick message to all the generals in the IDF who was involved in...
Wawa-wee-wah, I told you to stop playing the character. Why are you still playing the character? Wawa-wee-woo. Lee Kern, the second best prostitute in village. He prostitute to Netanyahu, second best prostitute in village to Netanyahu. Who best prostitute in village to Netanyahu? Me, Sacha Baron Cohen. Wawa-wee-woo, I have a position in IDF. I have a position in IDF.
the recent attack on the penises and testicles of Hezbollah.
You know, as that journalist Alan McLeod said, it really feels like these are rich Anglo-Israeli guys making fun of Muslims. By the way, Sacha has been lobbying to ban TikTok. He's calling it the biggest anti-Semitic movement since the Nazis.
Wawa-wee with the TikToks. Wawa-wee with TikTok coming after me, brother.
This got nothing to do with anti-Semitism. This is just about silencing all the voices that are trying to debunk the lies that are spun by the Zionist state with the help of Hollywood. Now you're probably asking yourself, maybe Hollywood just likes to do the right thing.
That's funny. Tell another one.
No, seriously, you might be asking yourself, but what is wrong with Hollywood defending Israel? Like maybe they're doing it because it's the moral thing to do, right? Let me tell you a little bit about the morality of Hollywood, yeah? In 2003, at the Oscars, when Michael Moore won documentary for Bowling for Columbine, and that year America was planning to invade Iraq, and Michael Moore chose to use his acceptance speech by bringing all the other documentary filmmaker nominees in the category, and spoke on their behalf when he said, we are all against this war, this fictitious war.
We live in a time where we have a man sending us to war for fictitious reasons. We are against this war, Mr. Bush. Shame on you, Mr. Bush. Shame on you.
Everyone was booing him. And the people who weren't were just silent, like all the actors sitting in the front, like Nicole Kidman. But what was very interesting, which brings us to the point of the lack of morality in Hollywood, that same award ceremony, that same Oscars, Roman Polanski won Best Director, and he could...
Being leftist is just being ahead of schedule. Tell me about it.
couldn't attend because he was convicted of raping a 13-year-old. He got a standing ovation from all these clowns in the room.
Goes for Roman Polanski for the pianist.
That's the morality of Hollywood. But it's okay. We can forgive Roman because he won Best Director for a movie about the Holocaust. I'm sure you've heard about the actress Melissa Barrera from Scream, who was fired from the Scream franchise, and Susan Sarandon, who was dropped by her agent for speaking up for Palestine. But there was one agent at one of the top acting agencies in Hollywood, Maha Dakhil, a Palestinian woman, who early on mentioned the word genocide. And she was going to be fired, and then because Tom Cruise actually interfered, she got demoted and basically silenced.
You silent, or were you silenced?
By the way, it's very ironic that more debate about Israel is allowed within Israel than in Hollywood.
I have an Israeli barber. He does my beard. And while he was cutting my beard, he was asking me about my thoughts on Israel-Palestine. And I noticed that the closer the blade got to my throat, the more I became pro-Israeli. That's how it feels talking about that conflict while wanting to succeed in Hollywood.
This environment of toxic peer pressure and arm twisting using money and power has always been there in Hollywood. And they always use it to silence any voice that stands up to the war machine, which Israel is a big part of.
Hi everyone, this is Wissam from Gaza. I'm still alive.
Have you heard about the 150...
They wanted to remove her nomination, dude. Just a lovely, intelligent lady living her life in Gaza, having the shit bombed out of her and being like, I'll record this and I'll make it into a film. No.
Hollywood celebrities now who signed a letter asking the Emmys to rescind the nomination of Bisan from Gaza, who's never uttered an
Imagine you're sitting in your Beverly Hills manor. You open your MacBook, perfectly air-conditioned. Your makeup live-in artist just did a face. Your chef prepared you a lovely breakfast. Now you're ready to get to work. The 10 minutes of work you're going to do for the day, what is it? Signing a petition to remove a lady being bombed from having her film nominated.
Jewish statement in her life. All she's doing, she's refusing to leave her land, and all she's trying to do is document the plight of her people.
In November 2023, I was among hundreds of thousands forced to risk our lives by walking south on Salahuddin Street.
150 Hollywood stars came together to write a letter to the Emmys asking them to take back her nomination.
Imagine being in the comfort of your home somewhere in LA and signing a petition.
Okay, I swear on my mother. I swear on my mother. I did not pre-watch this. I'm extremely serious. I just swore. I'm just too good at this, dude. I'm just too good. I just swore on my fucking family, okay? What the actual fuck? What the actual fuck? Am I psychic? Am I psychic? Am I psychic? I mean, I might be psychic because, wait, let me try and do another psychic thing. So, yes, I'm getting some information. What? What? No, not the darkness. Not the darkness. My psychic energy is telling me that in exactly 1 minute and 25 seconds, an ad will play. An ad that you can save yourselves from by clicking the subscribe button. Save yourself from this ad that is coming in. What is it telling me? 1 minute and 10 seconds by clicking the button for $6 a month or for free through Prime and becoming a subscriber, supporting this show while having an adless experience. It must be true, for I am truly psychic. The choice is yours. Support this incredible psychic or watch an ad.
To essentially say,
that was not
I don't like that Palestinian being nominated for an Emmy.
They can't bear to hear a Palestinian voice. How dare they, by the way? How vile and disgusting.
Again, I swear, I have not pre-watched this. I've not fucking pre-watched this.
This young woman, just trying to document what's happening in her country. They smear her by calling her anti-Semitic.
Stuck in Phone 1979, thank you very much for the sub with Prime and 3 months. Thank you very much, 10 out of 10. And thank you, Anarcho-Barnism, I apologize. Thank you very, very much for the 8 months. You're almost pregnant with my baby. And thank you, MFG Lag, for the 8 months, also almost pregnant with my baby, which has started the hype train. the beautiful, beautiful hype train. Let's get that shit to level
Wonderful.
5.
A new child soldier.
If possible, make
subscriber.
the Jew be a very loud Jew. Thank you very much to all the subscribers. Without you, genuinely, none of this would be possible.
So insulting to anyone.
Seriously. And thank you, Ramka, for the 100 bits. Anarcho-barbarism, Freudian slip. Yeah. Ramka always in there with those little stabs.
Intelligence. As if Palestinians would be completely okay if their land was stolen and they were being oppressed by a group other than Jewish people. Like, oh, you're Christians? That's fine. You can kill us. It's the Jews that we have a problem with. It's so embarrassing when people say things like that. Palestinians are trying to resist oppression. They don't care about the religion of their oppressor. Even one of the Hamas leaders, by the way, once said that if it was a Muslim who was doing this, we'd try to kill him. Like, it doesn't matter. This fictitious game of anti-Semitism. Like, it exists, honey, in Europe and in America, okay?
Anarcho-barbarism. I ain't a libertarian Israeli. I apologize. I apologize for misspelling the name. I was still in insane Zionist Borat mentality, okay?
But let's go back to the silencing of pro-Palestinian voices in Hollywood. This goes back decades. In the 70s, by the way. At the 1978 Oscars, actress Vanessa Redgrave won the award for Best Supporting Actress for a movie where she played an anti-Nazi fighter. So far, so good, as the Zionists are concerned. But the previous year, when her film was already out, Vanessa Redgrave sold 2 of her private houses to fund a documentary about the Palestinian cause. She called it The Palestinian. After her Oscar nomination for Julia was announced, far-right radical group Jewish Defense League, which again, by the way, they're always hiding behind the Star of David and Judaism. The Jewish Defense League is a terrorist organization. First of all, they threatened the members of the Academy with repercussions if they voted for Redgrave. Then they put a bounty on Redgrave's head and picketed Oscar night, calling her Arafat's whore, burning her effigy. And a Jewish Defense League member was later convicted of trying to burn down a Los Angeles theater which had been set to screen the Palestinian documentary by Vanessa Redgrave. So then it was a great shock to the Jewish Defense League that the Academy still voted for Redgrave to win the Oscar that year. And this brings us to Vanessa Redgrave's speech, which is played by...
Those who have won the nominations for Outstanding Performance by an Actress in a Supporting Role are...
Hey, Hugo.
And the winner is Vanessa Redgrave and Julia.
Hey, Hugo, your skull measuring came in. You came out at 70% Franco-Albanian. Your hairline also indicates sub-beta testosterones and small CCPP. Your theory is also sub-Hakim, and your ad breaks lack Riz. Am I mean enough to you? That was not bad. That was not bad. Thank you very much. I now feel bad. Excellent. My counter-argument to that is that you're old.
I thank you very, very much for this tribute to my work. 2 out of millions who gave their lives in the fight against fascist and racist Nazi Germany. And I salute you, and I pay tribute to you, and I think you should be very proud that in the last few weeks you've stood firm, and you have refused to be intimidated by the threats of a small bunch of Zionist hoodlums whose behavior is an insult to the stature of Jews all over the world and to their great and heroic record of struggle against fascism and oppression, against those who tried to express in their lives and their work the truth that they believed in. And I pledge to you that I will continue to fight against anti-Semitism and fascism. Thank you.
Thank you, Knife Emoji, for the gift sub, baby. I love knives and I love emojis. The 8th gift sub, thank you very much, man.
This video is about Israel's long-standing strategy to use the entertainment capital and to have the entertainment capital on its side as it crafts its image. In other words, this video is about the power of PR. Because Israel has always understood that this war is a PR culture war as much as it is a military one. It's a media war, essentially. And without a sympathetic Western media, Israel wouldn't be able to...
Thank you, Verana Zombie, for the sub with Prime. We are very close to level 3. Let's get it to level 3, because 3... you should show like this, not like this. Or God forbid like this. Who the fuck says 3 like this? Jesus Christ.
Cleanse Gaza. It relies on crucial
like
media
this,
support for its
like
projects.
For
like example, no one
Disgusting.
is as important for manufacturing consent for Israel's genocide as Rupert Murdoch, who owns media outlets all around the world such as The Sun and The Times in the UK, Wall Street Journal, New York Post, and Fox News in the US. Murdoch has extensive personal ties to the Israeli political elite and myriad business connections to the country.
So what I have here is a list that was compiled by Benjamin Netanyahu and his political office. Names with Netanyahu's writing. Now this was published by Y.net and the Israeli news paper. You have names of individuals.
Low key is low key based. High key based, baby. Love from Italy. Thank you very much, my friend.
That were considered by Netanyahu's political office to be funders of his campaign. But one name here who I think everybody should be interested in is Rupert Murdoch. And he's given the designation of 2.
So this man, whom Netanyahu considers a close ally, owns half the media. And this brings us to my video sponsor, Ground News, this topic of who owns the media. Ground News has an ownership feature that gives you exclusive information on who owns the media you consume. Media ownership is something not usually discussed much in our society, even though it greatly impacts the stories we read. Ground News has researched, analyzed, and hand-coded ownership data for over 2,000 news outlets and counting. If you have an investigative mind and like to peek behind the curtain and see what's behind the mask, behind the fairy tale, then you come to the right place. Let's take a closer look at this story, which covers how the United Nations has announced a pause in fighting after a baby contracted the first confirmed polio case in 25 years. On the right, I can see the coverage details and bias distribution of the story. Sources that lean to the left, sources that lean to the right, and sources from the center. We can scroll down and see the factuality and ownership. What's interesting about this story is that 16% of total coverage is from government-funded news outlets that are either independently managed or explicitly used for state-approved media. Basically, we should always keep our eyes open and follow the money as it moves between media conglomerates, governments, and security apparatus, as major financial interests always influence how media covers the news. And features like this is why I love Ground News. To get full access and explore other analytical tools like exploring media blind spots and seeing your own bias, you can subscribe to Ground News and get 40% discount on the Vantage plan, which is the plan that I use, by going to ground.news/indie or scan the QR code. And before we get back to the video, I want to quickly thank all the people who donated on the last video and the new members. Welcome, guys. And now back to the video. Hollywood has long enjoyed a special relationship with Israel, both on and off the screen. In 1978, there was a variety TV show on ABC, starring more than 30 of the biggest names in Hollywood, sports, and TV. They were celebrating Israel's 30th birthday. The show culminated in Barbra Streisand, the bigger singer at the time, who sang 3 of her biggest hits, and then interviewed live Golda Meir, then Prime Minister of Israel.
It's wonderful to hear your voice. I wish I could see your face.
It was a fantastic piece of TV.
What the fuck? Why? What the fuck? Why? Why? What? What? Why?
Both on and off the screen. In 1978, there was a variety TV show on ABC, starring more than 30 of the biggest names in Hollywood, sports, and TV. They were celebrating Israel's 30th birthday. The show culminated in Barbra Streisand.
What the fuck? Why are they celebrating Israel's birthday on variety TV? What?
Minister of Israel.
It's wonderful to hear your voice. I wish I could see your face.
It was a fantastic piece of TV where Golda Meir was acting like she's all nervous about being in the public eye, and Barbra Streisand was like kind of calming her down. Girl, this woman has nerves of steel, this Golda Meir. Golda Meir, who's presented as this kind of Jewish, loving grandmother, mother figure. You know what this woman once said? This is a statement which is typical of Israel. We may be able to forgive Palestinians or the Arabs for killing our children, but we will never forgive them for forcing us to kill their children. The fuck? Nobody forced you. You traveled thousands of miles, came to us, and killed our children, and continued to kill our children. But anyway, let's get back to Golda Meir at that 30th anniversary of Israel, and Barbra Streisand interviewing her. Barbra Streisand was introducing her as this fierce girl boss, kind of.
Because Israel is a special little boy, and he needs a big birthday party.
Zionists were spinning this
Good one,
identity years before anyone else did.
Before it was fashionable for ladies to be in positions of importance and responsibility, there was a woman.
Like, you know how they try to distract from their war crimes by talking about
more women in power of apartheid colonial regimes. Let's go. I love the women's. I love the women's, especially when they rule an apartheid colonial regime. Yes. Give me more women's.
How Middle East doesn't have gay rights or women rights. They were doing it. They're trailblazers. They were doing it in the 70s. And basically Barbra Streisand was, here's a woman who went out and did a thing.
She elevated the process over the stupid. She elevated the process over the stupid prison guards. Okay, prison guard, that is very old. Woman prison guard, ancient. Black woman prison guard, fucking pathetic. One of the most important people in apartheid colonial racist regime. Now that is what I'm calling CEO girl boss energy, da.
Barbra Streisand, she thinks she's sexy, like she does this weird voice. She went out and did a thing.
Went out and did her thing.
What? She actually believes this stuff. Because the support for Israel in Hollywood is not just driven by finance, it's also ideological and financial, of course, and driven by what the market needs. The head of the Jewish Federation...
I like my unlimited support for genocide packaged in a pantsuit. Apartheid, but make it woke. Holy shit, we can't even... right-wingers can't even be apartheid supporters anymore because it's woke, chat. Holy fuck. They woked up my apartheid, man. A YouTuber is about to drop a review of 2024 apartheid, and he's going to be like, shit, it sucks, man. It's so woke.
Of Greater Los Angeles, Jay Sanderson once said, there is no country that has a stronger relationship with Hollywood than Israel. The development of Israel as a creative...
Apartheid South Africa should have gotten a white woman president, and the West would have continued to shower it with support. Absolutely. Big mistake. Big mistake.
Source for Hollywood was decades in the making. These efforts helped Tel Aviv become a major incubator of the industry, leading to local Israeli shows being adapted in the US, shows like Homeland.
An American prisoner of war has been turned.
You're suggesting that having a Syrian planted intelligence in his own safe house.
And this stuff isn't conspiracy theory that I'm digging up from the dark corners of the internet. These people who are saying this, they're pro-Israeli. Like the two writers of the book I based my research on, Tony Shaw and Giora Goodman. These two people are pro-Israelis. One is an expert in the Hollywood archives, and the other is an expert in the Israeli archives. And this is stuff that they say themselves.
I mean, Hollywood has never done with any other country, and this is what our research found, that no country like Israel has been celebrating that way by Hollywood over the past century or more, and that was just a wonderful find for me.
And I was surprised again and again to find just how much effort had been put in by Israeli government officials, by Israeli IDF officers, into bringing over to Israel's cause what is the global entertainment capital.
So basically, the Israeli government saw early on the value of using entertainment as a propaganda tool. Let me give you an example. You know about the Entebbe rescue operation in 1976? In 1976, two German leftists paired up with the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine and hijacked an Air France plane with 105 Israeli passengers and directed the plane to Entebbe, in the hope their cause will be supported by the Ugandan leader Idi Amin. The hijacking was meant to force Israelis to negotiate for the release of jailed Palestinians.
Call upon revolutionary movements everywhere to focus the attention of the world on the Palestinian people's struggle.
Now, Israel is known for its vehement opposition to negotiating with terrorists, otherwise known as Palestinian human beings. But in 1976, Israel surprised everyone by agreeing to negotiate, and then secretly launched a mission to rescue the hostages in what became known as one of the boldest Israeli operations. So, a few films were made about this, including this 2018 version.
We stop for nothing until all the hostages are safe.
As expected, the film frames Israelis as willing to debate, argue, and ask tough questions of themselves, of course, before being forced to choose violence, because that's the only way you can talk with Palestinians. Not really different from today. Hamas has been asking for the release of Palestinian hostages, which are more than 10,000, dying in Israeli jails, being tortured. But Israel doesn't want to release any hostages. And by the way, while we're on the topic of hostages, did you see how the Israeli police trampled over a girl who's a family member of a hostage, Israeli hostage, at a demonstration in Tel Aviv? Zionism doesn't care about anyone. It will crush anyone in its way. But anyway, back to 1976 and the Entebbe operations and vis-a-vis Hollywood, right? When the rescue operation happened in 1976, immediately, according to the book by Tony Shaw and Giora Goodman, more than 20 Hollywood producers reached out to the Israeli government wanting to produce movies about what happened. It was like an auction. And then the Israeli government turned to the most celebrated writer at the time, Ephraim Kishon, to help them select the best company to make the film. And one of those companies was Warner Brothers. Kishon actually explained this in internal documents.
And he says, and he explains, what is the value of having one of Hollywood's biggest action stars at the time? And he's discussing a few names. The person who is sitting at row 40 at the top, the top of the cinema, identifies with a positive figure who is an Israeli hero. That is the true reach of Hollywood and the interest of the Israeli government.
By the way, Tom and Giora's book highlights a very important figure in Hollywood, Arnaud Milchan. Not only is he one of the most successful Hollywood producers in the last 3 decades, producing blockbusters and Oscar-winning films, he also offered a lot of diplomatic and political support to Israel by making his base in Hollywood a place where Israeli foreign ministers and prime ministers can come over. He also happens to be a former Mossad intelligence officer and an arms dealer, and also helped run a PR operation for
This video is so fucking good, man. Go fucking subscribe the living shit out of In Denial. In Denial, I want you to smash the shit out of that like button and a shit out of that subscribe button. Thank you very much, In Denial. Your work is very good, and this is fucking awesome.
South Africa called Operation Hollywood in the 1970s. Side note, Israel was always a big supporter of apartheid South Africa. Birds of a feather. Anyway, this Milchan character would invite Hollywood celebrities always to Israel, like Robert De Niro. And this is very common, by the way. The Israeli government and its allies wisely cultivated influential figures in American life to visit Israel and to finally act as de facto ambassadors for the state. And this started very early on.
Please, not Robert De Niro. I fucking love Robert De Niro. No. Okay, I'll just concentrate on him being old.
And with people like Elizabeth Taylor.
Don't take Robert De Niro away from me.
When she was at the peak of her career, which is also another very intelligent strategy. And back then, Elizabeth Taylor really identified with the struggle of the Jewish people, which, of course, it's a horrible thing what happened during the Holocaust. Too bad nobody told Elizabeth what Israel was actually founded on.
השתוללו בטנטורה היה משהו נורא. טנטורה היה כפר עשיר, בתים יפים, קרים כמו אירופאים, אתה יודע, וגם אנשים היו לבושות ויפה, וזה באמת היה כפר... אחד אנס שם איזה ילדה בת 16, משהו כזה. אתה מבין? אבל זה מכוער מאוד, היה לנו בחור אחד ונפטר, הוא היה פרא אדם, הוא לקח פשוט מאוד ורצח אותם בתוך המכלאות.
Speaking of using Hollywood stars as ambassadors for Israel, one of the authors of the book, Tony Shaw, the one that I mentioned, Hollywood in Israel, before starting to write this book, he was diving into the Hollywood archives and he found this letter to Gregory Peck, one of the most famous actors at the time between the 40s and the 70s. There was a letter addressed to him from Frank Sinatra.
A letter from Frank Sinatra to Gregory Peck from the mid-70s saying to Peck, hey, I'm going to hire an airliner. This is Frank Sinatra. I'm going to hire an airliner and I want to fill it with people and take them to Israel because I think Israel's a great place. And you're going to meet all the politicians. You're going to meet the prime minister.
Frank Sinatra was a big lover of Israel for some reason. In completely unrelated news, go look up the FBI file on Sinatra and look up his ties to the mob, the mafia. This guy, like the state he supports, was a piece of work.
I did it my way.
Anyway, Israel has been using Hollywood to craft an image of itself as a modern state, fighting savages right from the very beginning.
Life magazine says Otto Preminger's film Exodus goes beyond the book as a tale told in proud passion.
Films like Exodus, based on a novel by Leon Uris, who by the way blankly stated that if he wasn't writing books and films about Israel, he'd prefer to be over there shooting Arabs. In the film Exodus depicted Israel as a glorious frontier outpost populated by brave
It's weird how celebrities technically aren't capitalists because they often don't own the means of production, but they effectively act like the bourgeois anyways. It reminds me of C. Wright Mill's power elite a bit. Yeah, one could paint them in the PMC theory if one chooses to do so, but taking a whole profession and then generalizing it in such a manner is liberal. We don't do that as Marxists. But also as Marxists, we look at the average material, reality for them, and very successful actors are usually what? They're usually rich. And their circle is also what? Usually also rich people. A lot of them actual capitalists. So their mentality adjusts to their environment. And that's why very often they are, let's say, neoliberal shills, for the lack of a better word.
And some blonde-haired, blue-eyed Americans. And this coincided with Israel taking on a bigger role in regional politics in the 1960s. And that's actually when the tone of Hollywood films about Israel started to change. Because before...
Most actors aren't super wealthy. That's why I said super successful actors, at least financially successful. You can, of course, be a very successful actor and play in your small town in the theater. It's absolutely subjective. Success is a subjective concept. Always remember that.
Before that, in the 50s, Israel was presented as a holy land. And over the years, the image of Israel, with the help of Hollywood, moved from holy land to a big ally of America in fighting the Soviets, and more recently in fighting the Arab terrorists. The Israeli filmmaker Menachem Golan helped popularize the image of the Arab terrorist and the heroic Israeli intelligence officer to the American public, and continued refining this idea across decades in big blockbuster action films.
American, I want to negotiate. Do you hear me, American?
Loud and clear. America's new heroes, the Delta Force.
You're probably wondering, are a couple of Hollywood films portraying Arabs as terrorists enough to call this propaganda? Perhaps it's important to take a step back and contextualize all of this. Hollywood doesn't just help Israel project an image of itself. It does the same for the United States, and more importantly, it does it for the United States to help project its ideology around the world. Because it's very important to mention here that America doesn't project its dominance only through the military, although it does that through the military with its more than 800 bases around the world, which, by the way, is more than any other nation or empire in the history of the world. And one could argue that one of these bases, and the most important base, is Israel.
Jesus, this video is exceptionally good, but I need to do an interview with the deprogram in exactly 5 minutes, and I need to prepare the software, so I'm going to blue ball the living shit out of you. Today is October 7th. 365 days ago, a genocide has continued, not started, only intensified. Do whatever you can materially and physically to support the Palestinian cause. Talk to your friends, support protests, support organizations that are pro-Palestinian. Give money, give your time, give your body, be present, and have as many conversations as you potentially can to bring people to the light, even though, as I said during this stream, it makes absolutely no fucking sense for anybody to still be a Zionist or pro-Zionist at this point. Say hi to Hakim and JT for us. I will Socialist Sympathetic. Thank you very much for the 100 bits. Thank you to everybody who clicked follow. If you haven't, it literally costs you nothing. Click that thick ass button right now, my beauty. Thank you to everybody who subscribed. Genuinely, absolutely impossible to do this without that financial support. And thank you to my beautiful, beautiful mods. Now I will send you to a raid to a small creator that raided me. And we always pay back here. Say love from me. They're called Argonian Bum. So go say hi to Orgonian Bum. They seem to be a comrade. Thank you, Henge. Sorry for oversimplifying. No worries. Thank you very much for the 100 bits. Okay, go raid, have fun, and I will see you tomorrow. Tomorrow, same time, a bit more chill of a vibe because it's not going to be such an important day that, needs to be noted. Thank you very much for taking the time to join me today. Join the Discord. Follow me on my thick-ass fucking Instagram, on Twitter, and YugopnikTwitch on YouTube for the highlights. Now we have a TikTok. Go on TikTok, Yugopnik something. YugopnikTwitch or Yugopnik or whatever. Go and enjoy that. Now go say hi to the person we're rating, and I will see you tomorrow. Sorry for blue balling you, but I literally have to jump. Much love, many kisses. It is very difficult to be a podcaster, streamer, and video maker at the same time. Literally the hardest job, but I have all three of them. Bye-bye. Love you. Mwah, mwah.